Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto is a quiet child part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. What is a shinobi? People ask themselves this question, and the answer is almost never the same. Some may say a shinobi is a perfect killing machine, a monster who would never question his superior's orders and should kill without any mercy. Others would object. They would say a shinobi is he who protects the weak and the innocent without caring for his own life. There are infinite unique definitions and opinions. However, none of them are wrong or right. A shinobi cannot be defined in simple ways. A shinobi uses the energy known as chakra. Chakra has existed for a long time in the world. It originated, if one is to believe the legends, when a princess named Otsutsuki Kagaya ate the forbidden fruit from the Shinju tree, with intentions to stop all the wars, and became a goddess. Her sons Hagoromo and Hamura inherited her power, and when the princess' mind became warped with power, they sealed her in the moon after a long battle. Otsutsuki Hagoromo was considered a god himself. People called him the Sage of Six Paths. The powers were then passed on to their children, and in their lineage. The sage spread his teachings on chakra, known as Nishu, which helped people understand each other and minimize the need for violence. However, ironically, his teachings were then perverted by people into ninjutsu, which was almost always used to cause violence. After an era when clans warred against each other, the first hidden village was formed by the rival clans Uchiha and Senju. Many other clans followed, and the village was named Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves. After that, 4 other main villages were established, thus forming the 5 great nations. There have been 3 great ninja wars till now. The first great ninja war ended with an armistice treaty, but also left the 5 great countries seriously wounded. The treaty led to a period of peace, but after about 20 years, the economic disparity between the countries had become a serious problem. The nations began to form factions, and under the pretext of expending fair rights, the countries started using military force to expand their territories. Thus, the Second Great War started. The conflict flowed from the Second War to the Third War, almost without a pause, which had ended not more than a year ago. Namake's Minato was a tall, blonde-haired man. He stood in silence as he watched the beast destroy his village. In his arms, he carried a small bundle, my child. Minato was a war hero. He played a very major part in ending the Third War, almost single-handedly. Minato was named the 4th Hokage after the 3rd retired near the end of the Third War, almost a year ago. He was supposed to be the strongest man in the village. The Hokage had a duty to protect his village. But as a father and a husband, he couldn't be sure if he could save his family tonight. He watched the monster, the beast causing wanton destruction, and noticed that it suddenly stopped moving, with golden chains binding its massive 300-meter-tall frame. The beast was crushed to the ground, glaring in front of itself. Kushina, his wife, was not even close to giving up, despite just having given birth to their child, as she looked fiercely in the beast's eyes. They were attacked just after she gave birth to their beautiful daughter. A man wearing a yellow mask had appeared in a distortion, and taken their child hostage. "Step away from the Jinchuriki, or the child will die," the man had said. He was clearly an Uchiha, his Sharingan eye blazing through the mask hole. Minato managed to save his child, but his wife was taken by the man and the Kyuubi inside of her was forcefully brought out. Usually, when the tailed beast is extracted, its Jinchuriki dies instantly. But because of her Uzumaki vitality and sheer willpower, she was still alive, but barely. The Uchiha are a part of the Leaf Village. Why attack your own home? What do you aim to achieve? That, the man chuckled in a deep voice, is none of your business, 4th Hokage. And it won't even matter to you, because you will die today. That I promise you. The man used a strange teleporting ability, and Minato had a hard time connecting his attacks. But one attack was all he needed to injure the man, enough to make him retreat. As expected of the Yellow Flash, you really are the fastest. You may have defeated me, but the Kyuubi will be mine one day, and then he was gone. Minato teleported to his wife, breaking out of his shock. Kushina. Are you okay, Minato? I can't hold it back much longer. She was breathing heavily. We need to seal it back inside of me. I'm already dying, I'll take this bastard with me. Minato's face was grim. He knew it was a bad idea. Even if it works, the Kyuubi will just reform in a few years. Konoha will lose its possession, and the balance of power would be greatly disturbed. Moreover, we cannot allow it to fall in that masked man's hands. He told his wife, and she snapped her neck to glare at him. You better not be planning to do what I think you are. I'll never forgive you if you burden our child with this. Not after my son. She stopped herself abruptly in the middle upon seeing the hurt on Minato's face. Their first child, a beautiful boy, died hours after he was born. They were devastated and never truly recovered from their son's death. However, they wanted to try again, but it doesn't seem like fate would ever let them spend more than a few hours with either of their children. She was angry, frustrated, and just very sad. Jinchuriki were almost always treated with scorn by the people. It was something parents could not burden their child with. But deep down, Kushina knew her husband was right. They had no choice but to trust that their daughter would be strong enough to push through it. Her face was wet with sweat and tears, and her legs were getting wobbly, but she did not let the chains binding the beast loose. Minato looked into her eyes and pleaded. He was my son as well, I loved him too. I do not want to do this any more than you do, but this is the only way and you know it too. Turning your back on your village and country is just as bad as abandoning your child. Kushina, you should understand you saw your own country fall apart. Have a little faith. She is our daughter after all. Kushina looked defeated. She looked at the bundle in his arms. Just let me hold her once more. I want to gaze at her face once more before I die. Minato brought his gaze to the crying baby and nodded silently. As soon as she held her, the baby stopped crying, almost as if knowing she was in her mother's embrace, and smiled brightly. Pale face with 6 whisker marks on her face, red hair and blue eyes. She had her mother's hair but her father's eyes. Kushina laughed too, gently, crying all the while. Minato looked solemnly at the scene and then glared at the beast, which was beginning to stand up. Summoning jutsu, a gigantic toad, carrying a tanto and smoking a pipe appeared in a big cloud of smoke and crashed upon the giant fox. Gamabunta! Stop the beast from getting up while I prepare to seal it. Gamabunta, for once, looked at the scene and did not question anything. The Hokage summoned an altar, and Kushina gently placed the child on it, which started crying again upon noticing the lack of her mother, and drew a symbol on her stomach. I will use Shiki Fujin to seal half of the Kyuubi within myself, and half in Natsumi, using the 8 trigram sealing formula. Minato! He's too strong for me, hurry up! The fox roared and thrashed, and Gamabunta was thrown off. The 9-tailed fox, fury in its eyes, looked at the baby and the symbol, and realized that it was going to be sealed again. No! A giant claw moved towards the baby to kill it, but it was stopped. Kushina and Minato were standing in the way, a claw all the way through their guts, blood dripping from their mouths. The baby stopped crying and looked at them curiously, blinking. They smiled down at her, even though they couldn't feel their legs anymore. I will seal our remaining chakra in the 8 trigram seal too, so we won't be seeing her for a while. Let's tell her what we want to say to her. Natsumi, don't be a picky eater, eat a lot and grow big and strong. Take your bath every day, go to bed early and sleep well. Study hard on your ninjutsu, I was never good at it, maybe you will be, and if things don't go so well, don't get depressed. Make friends, doesn't matter how many, just make sure the few you have you can really trust. Regarding the 3 prohibitions, be careful when you loan or borrow money, make sure to save some of your mission pay, and no drinking until you are 22. Much sake is harmful for your body and for boys, don't go around chasing strange ones, find someone just like your father, and watch out for Jiraiya sensei. She paused to wince. Natsumi, there are going to be hard and painful times ahead, take good care of yourself. There's so much I want to tell you, teach you, I want to stay with you longer, but I've made your big brother wait more than enough. I love you, Minato, sorry I took all your time too. Minato grinned painfully. Natsumi, my words to you as your father is ditto to your motormouth mother. The Kyuubi was sealed once again. When people arrived at the battlefield, all they found were the 4th Hokage and his wife's corpse with a baby crying in an altar. The only one who knew about the child's lineage was Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage. He realized what had happened and cursed himself. The day will be remembered by the current and coming generations as a day to mourn for their losses and rejoice for their Hokage's victory. Konoha lost countless civilians and shinobi, among whom was the man hailed and feared throughout the world as the Yellow Flash of Konoha. He died leaving his legacy to his child, his daughter Uzumaki Natsumi. However, he left another legacy that neither he nor the 3rd Hokage knew about. Naruto was a quiet child at the young age of 6. His violet eyes carried the innocence befitting of a child his age. For the first 4 years of his life, all he has seen was a laboratory and a small room. The pale-faced man with slitted eyes was the only adult he ever saw. He doesn't remember much of the man, considering all the contact he had with him was when the man injected him with painful injections. Those just made him feel weird. He didn't think his life was terrible, though. He was fed daily and had a roof on his head, so he never complained. However, this changed when one day, an old man wearing a red hat and white robes came barging into the lab, followed by a dozen masked men. The pale-faced man was able to flee. However, only Naruto and one other child, who was slightly older than him, were all that were left alive after the man's sick experiments. Naruto did not have his name when he was rescued, however. He was always called by the pale man by his tag number. It was 2 years ago when he found out that people actually had names instead of numbers. He still remembers. He was taken to a room with white walls and no windows, along with the other child, who he distinctly remembered seeing in the lab once. A blond man with a ponytail, probably in his early 20s, stood in front of them. The man saw their nervousness and thought that maybe some good food would make the children open up slightly. He told them to wait and came back carrying 2 bowls of something. Eat up, the man dawdled. Neither of the children moved. This is ramen, it won't do you any harm. Of course, considering that you don't just eat ramen every day. The man attempted a joke, but no one laughed. Of course, they don't know how to use chopsticks. He palmed his forehead. Here, I'll help, he offered and used the chopsticks to begin feeding them. After eating the first bite, he admitted to himself, mentally of course, that ramen was the most incredible thing he had ever had. It didn't matter that all he was used to eating was dry and packaged food. This was the first time he had eaten anything that had anything resembling flavor. He stared at the man with wide eyes. The man chuckled. It is good, HM? It even has my favorite topping, narutomaki. The man laughed, seeing the child's astounded expression. He was still looking at the bowl. Naruto, he mumbled as he looked at the swirly pattern thing. When both of them had finished eating, the man faced them again. Let's see now, my name is Yamanaka Inoichi. What are your names? Do you remember anything before you were at that place? His tone was gentle. He called me number 17. The man arched an eyebrow at that. Numbers? I was number 4, the older of the two said. Well, now that won't do at all. Say, what is it that you like the most? The man asked them childishly, grinning. He did not want to scare them at all now that they were finally talking. The children were quiet for a while. Suddenly, the younger of the two, the blonde-haired kid, replied in a meek voice, ramen. Inoichi laughed loudly at the response. Ramen, HM? All right. How about, he stopped to think, tapping his chin with his index finger. Naruto? Do you like the name Naruto? The man ruffled his hair. Naruto nodded a little. The other child, however, was silent. The man faced him and said, What about you? Do you like anything? He did not reply. Seeing this, the man sighed. If that's the case, then, how about Tenzo HM? The child looked at him confusingly and mumbled Tenzo. However, the man perceived his tone as accepting and nodded. Then let's get going now, Naruto, Tenzo. After that, Naruto, and a still confused Tenzo, was admitted to an orphanage. However, Tenzo mysteriously disappeared one day and would not be seen for a few years. That was when he found out about his love for all things ramen. He might regret naming himself after a ramen topping when he grows up, but right now, the only thing Naruto loved was ramen. The orphanage matron was a woman in her late 50s, simply called by the kids as Granny. She was a kind lady who loved taking care of children. The orphanage had a box where people may give anything they would like. When the box was sufficiently filled, the things were distributed among the kids by the matron. It usually had toys for children, so Naruto never took anything after the first few times. One such day, the matron came to him. Naruto? She knocked and then entered the room. She found him sitting on the bed, practicing his writing. His room was plain, brown painted walls, 4 beds, one in each corner, and a window. He was almost always alone, either practicing his calligraphy in a notebook or usually sitting under a tree near the river, listening to the song of insects and chirping of the birds. Naruto always felt oddly at peace near the river and the trees and never liked closed rooms after the first 4 years spent in isolation. Other kids usually avoided him because he rarely spoke more than a few words and never showed any interest in playing games with them, and thus was dubbed as the boring kid. She sat across from him on the bed and looked at him. I want you to have this. She showed something in her hand. I know you don't like toys, so I wanted to give you this. It was a thin object, wrapped in a cloth. Curiosity got the better of him, and he took it in his hands. Upon unraveling it, he looked at it, mesmerized. It was a brown-colored flute, somewhat old but well cared for, and had black highlights. He looked into her eyes, surprised. I know that you never knew your birthday, but today, the 17th of January, is the day when you came here last year, so it could be your birthday in a way after all. She grinned at him. This belonged to my mother when I was your age. I loved when she played it. I could never learn how to play, so I kept it with me all this time, but I think it would be better if you kept it. Happy birthday, Naruto. He felt something in his chest, something painful and pleasant at the same time, and grabbed at it. Happiness. Is this what happiness feels like? He thought with moist eyes but stayed silent. He looked at Granny, and she smiled, knowing what he was feeling. She patted his head lovingly and stood up to leave. She heard a muffled thank you when she was standing at the door and looked over her shoulder. Naruto was a good kid, and she had really been trying to make him feel happier. It was the first time in his life that young Naruto smiled, and it was breathtakingly beautiful. That day, somehow, the trees and flowers bloomed all around the village of Konoha unlike ever before. On October 10th, he experienced fear for perhaps the first time in his admittedly short life. He was out in the park, sitting alone on a swing and watching other kids playing. Granny has been pushing him to make some friends since he had none. But he wasn't very enthusiastic about it. The first thing he saw was a great fire in the distance. People started panicking. They scooped their children and started running out of the park. He followed them too. That's when he first saw it. A giant fox thrashed in the middle of the village as it destroyed everything around it. He stood motionless in the middle of the street, feeling so small and insignificant, watching with wide eyes as the giant fox was suddenly trapped with golden chains. It roared as debris flew everywhere. He surely would have died if not for a black-haired girl around his age, who was carrying a baby with her, grabbed him by the hand and pulled him along. He was too shocked to even resist. If he would have looked around instead of being fixed on the fox, he would have noticed the countless dead bodies surrounding him. Come with me. Quick! The girl shouted. The girl put on a brave face. However, Naruto could see her hands trembling. She was perhaps even more scared than him, but she was still running and holding the baby protectively. Naruto wondered if there would ever be anything so important to him that he'd protect it with his life. It sounded stupid to him, and made his head hurt at the same time, so he stopped thinking about it. Why were you not moving? Do you not want to live? She asked him when they reached the shelter. However, Naruto did not react to her question and kept staring at the baby in her arms, eyes containing curiosity. Upon noticing where he was staring, she told him, "This is Sasuke, my little brother." Naruto averted his eyes and did not say anything. Hours passed, and finally it was all quiet. The raven-haired girl had earlier left to find her parents. When they all went outside, everything was in rubbles around them. People were silent, mourning. Even though he knew he never had anything to lose, even though he knew he had no one important to him, he still couldn't figure out why he felt like he lost something very important today. Why was he still crying? Sarutobi Hiruzen was having an awful day. Yesterday he was with his wife at his home, smoking his pipe and enjoying the weather. It all changed in a single day. His wife was dead. His successor, Namikaze Minato, and his wife Uzumaki Kushina gave their lives for the village and left their child orphaned. Half the village was in ruins. He just wanted this nightmare to end, wanted to go back to his home, where his wife would surely be waiting for him, and gaze outside the window while smoking his pipe. But this was no dream, and his wife was very dead. A council meeting was called. All the clan heads were summoned since all of them survived the attack. His old friends and advisors, Yutane Koharu, Mitokado Hamura, and Shimura Danzo, were present as well. In the corner was a cradle with a baby sleeping in it. Konoha has lost her Hokage. 12 hours ago, Kyuubi was somehow extracted from its previous Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Kushina. Minato and Kushina did not survive, unfortunately, but they saved us all by sealing the beast inside of this child. Hiruzen had a face that made it obvious he was tired. His eyes had dark bags underneath them, and his face was even more wrinkled somehow. The mood around the table was somber, and no one spoke for a while. It was one thing to hear about the rumors of the Hokage's death, and another thing to have it confirmed. "This child is at Yandame's?" Hamura asked. It was not well known, but the only Uzumaki in the village was in a relationship with Minato, so it was not far-fetched. Hiruzen was silent, and everyone drew their conclusions. Konoha has lost a lot of her shinobi. We don't need other nations sniffing around at our moment of weakness. Give me the guardianship of the Jinchuriki, and I will train this child to be the most powerful shinobi of Konoha, its perfect weapon. It was Danzo who said this, and no one was surprised. However, almost everyone present knew what he meant by it. However flawless it might seem to his advisors, the idea had its own demerits, and Hiruzen was all too quick to point them out. "I cannot let you do that, Danzo," he spoke with a grave but authoritative voice. "Even if what you say is right, a Jinchuriki's true strength comes from their emotions. Your methods may look promising on the surface, but it will be counterproductive in the long run." Perhaps, he might have been a bit biased because of the child's ancestry, but the three had known Sarutobi long enough to know that he would not be budging. Danzo stared at him with his lone eye but did not speak again. "The civilians and all the shinobi below rank Jounin will be prohibited from this knowledge. We all know how the Jinchuriki are treated. People fear what they do not understand. That fear turns to anger, and anger turns to hatred. If this child was hated by the village and grew to hate the village back, it would be most disastrous." Shikaku, the Nara clan head, nodded his head in agreement. However, it didn't seem like everyone present agreed with it. No one could tell what the Uchiha and Hyuga clan heads, or Danzo for that matter, were thinking due to their stoic faces. No one voiced any objections if they had any, and other matters were discussed. It would be a long while before anything resembling an order is established. When the council was adjourned, Hiruzen covered his face with his palms and took a deep breath, dismissing his ANBU. He spoke to apparently no one. Jiraiya, a tall man with spiky, waist-length white hair and red lines under his eyes, suddenly materialized out of thin air, his hands crossed. His expressions were set grim in stone. "I'll find out the bastard," Jiraiya said with gritted teeth. "I'll find out who did this." He was too late. He was ashamed to admit that while his student was fighting for his life, he was out there peeping on women in a bathhouse. He came as soon as he could, but Minato was already gone. Hiruzen didn't reply for a long time. "The Yandame is gone. Konoha needs a new Hokage." "One that." "No." Jiraiya refused even before he was finished. "A master does not succeed his own student, and I'm not even half as worthy of being Hokage as Minato was. Seems you will have to retake the seat, Sensei," he spoke with a sad smile. "Seems like it." Hiruzen sighed. "Well, do you wish to see your goddaughter?" he asked him, and Jiraiya moved to see the cradle in the corner. A bittersweet smile adorned the Toadsage's face. "She looks just like her parents." He thought so much that it almost hurt him to just look. "I know, Jiraiya, I know." His sensei only looked at his face to realize what he was thinking about. "Will you take her with you? Kakashi is too young, and they named you her godfather for precisely this reason after all." "No, Sensei," he shook his head. "I'm constantly on the move. I can't always take her with me. If she is with me, then her life would be in even more trouble than it already will be. And Orochimaru is still out there. She would be safer in the village. I will look out for her anyway." It was sound logic, and his sensei didn't argue. Well then, I suppose it is time I returned to my research. I'm sure Minato would want me to continue writing his favorite books. His voice cracked with emotion as he attempted to laugh in his usual persona to find some sense of normality. He moved to the window and turned his face away from his teacher. Hiruzen didn't need to look at his student's face to know he was crying. Farewell, sensei, he let out before jumping out of the window. Hiruzen felt oddly alone in his office now. His student, Jiraiya, considered Minato a son. Hiruzen could not claim that he knew how it felt. Losing a son was not something he wanted to experience. He looked at the sleeping child, and his eyes softened. Minato, Kushina, watch over her. Naruto-chan, are you sure about this? It has been 4 months since Kyuubi's rampage, and after a large amount of damage control, Konoha was able to recover somewhat. Since a large number of shinobi were lost in the attack, the children were being encouraged to join the academy at an early age. After little consideration, Naruto decided to join the academy. He did not want to feel weak ever again, he promised himself. That feeling of hopelessness he felt back then was terrifying. He wanted to be strong, thus, he voiced his decision to join the academy to Granny. And naturally, she was not very convinced. Naruto has become one of her favorite kids over the past few months. And he was always insisting on helping her, be it with the groceries, laundry, or in the kitchen. Yes. I really want to be a ninja. I want to be strong too, he insisted, determination in his eyes. Honestly, she just didn't want to see him go. She knew as soon as an orphan gets admitted to the academy, they are eligible for a stipend to rent an apartment until they graduate. Naruto will similarly be living at his own place if he wishes to. Sometimes Naruto wondered if this was what having a mother felt like. It made him happy, but she overdid it sometimes. Granny sighed. Fine, we'll get you admitted to the ninja academy. She ruffled his hair and smiled sadly. Naruto smiled toothily a little, and Granny giggled. Why are you laughing? He tilted his head. She continued to giggle. It's nothing, I just like watching you smile. She didn't lie but didn't tell him the true reason she was laughing for. His missing tooth made him look even cuter when he smiled. She will miss him. The academy started in the summer. Naruto chose to live in his own small apartment. The stipend was just enough for him to buy his groceries and pay monthly rent while saving some money for other things. They were required to pass a reasonably easy aptitude test for the entrance, and Naruto had no problem in that department. Naruto was wearing a white t-shirt with gray shorts. There were a lot of children present. Most of them were with their parents, but a fair bit were standing alone. Naruto felt somewhat nervous, being around so many people. He looked around a bit, and noticed that the raven-haired girl that saved his life was here as well. She was present with a man, who he assumed was her father, and her mother carrying her younger brother. He looked as the baby kept whining to be held by his sister, but the girl just smiled at her brother in apology, and said something. The baby pouted and looked away, directly in his direction. Upon noticing where her little brother was looking, the girl's eyes widened in recognition, and she waved at him. Naruto, embarrassed that he was caught staring, snapped his face to where the Hokage was giving his welcome speech. Congratulations on your acceptance to the academy, everyone. Hiruzen briefly looked over the audience, his eyes lingering on Naruto's hair for a bit more than rest. He blinked his eyes and shoved the impossible thought to the back of his mind, resuming his speech. Naruto was confused. For a second, he swore that the Hokage recognized him, but he doesn't remember ever talking to him. After the speech was over, the academy classes were started, and the parents left their children. Naruto took a seat back in the left corner. He watched as the class was filled up and the raven-haired girl took a seat in the front row. She glanced at him once and then, huffing, puffed her cheeks and turned away from him. Naruto twitched a brow. What did he do to annoy her? Soon, a fairly large man with brown hair, wearing the standard Konoha uniform, entered the class. Congratulations to everyone. From today onward, we will start our curriculum. I hope all of you will work hard and become excellent shinobi. My name is Daikoku Funino, ranked Chunin, and I will be your teacher for the foreseeable future. Let's do the introductions. Just your name is enough for now. Soon everyone started introducing themselves and soon the raven-haired girl stood up at her turn. Uchiha Izumi. As soon as she said this, some kids started whispering among themselves. Uchiha? I heard they are very stuck up. She's so pretty. KH. I bet she's here only because she's part of a big clan. Izumi glared at the last one but ignored the first two. I'll show you. Enough. You are not here to gossip or spread rumors. Next. Funino barked. A girl with tattoo markings on her face stood up with confidence. I'm Inuzuka Hana. Soon it was his turn, and as he stood up, he saw Izumi looking at him from the corner of her eye. I'm Naruto. I hope we get along. He bowed a bit, just like he was taught. Some kids laughed. Wait, he is named Fish Cake? What kind of parents name their kid Fish Cake? Even their sensei was failing to hide his smile. He sat down in embarrassment and turned away, mumbling bitterly. Who said my parents were there to name me? His voice was drowned in the laughter, but he noticed Izumi looking at him olishly. After introductions, they talked about the essential things for being a shinobi, rank, jutsu, etc. Soon it was midday, and they were taken out for lunch. He saw everyone forming groups and sighed. Granny would nag me to make some friends. He found himself a tree and sat under it, away from everyone else. As soon as he opened his lunchbox, he saw someone's feet. Following up with his eyes, he saw it was that raven-haired girl named Izumi. She looked at him scrutinizingly. I was shocked. I was sure you were mute. You never said anything back when we first met, she said cheekily, squinting her eyes. You know, it's pretty rude to ignore someone who's waving at you. I was just startled. He ignored the last statement and didn't look into her eyes. Her tone laced with sarcasm. Thanks for that day. I would have died if not for you. He scratched his cheek and looked away. It's all right. If you're really thankful, we can just say that you owe me a favor. She grinned. Naruto smiled awkwardly. Anyway, I'll see you later. It was nice meeting you, fish cake. She ran away laughing when she saw him, almost pouting. What a weird girl. When the lunch was over, they were brought in a clearing. We'll be having friendly spars to make out the basic standings of class. Let's see first. Naruto and Izumi. Step in the middle, and make the unison sign before you begin. You will stop when I say so or if your back touches the ground. Both the children copied the sign he showed them and took their respective positions. Naruto took a deep breath and faced Izumi, looking into her eyes. He took a makeshift stance. Izumi just stood with one hand above her abdomen, still making the seal. Their hands met in the sign of unison, and the warmth faded from her eyes, something that made him uneasy. Begin! The instructor barked, and Naruto ran at Izumi fast as he could. It all happened in a moment. One moment he was facing her, standing. The next moment he was looking at the blue sky, Izumi above him. Her two fingers that were used to make the seal were pointing between his eyes. He stared at her, wide-eyed. Everyone was silent. The kids who made fun of her earlier were gaping. She smiled suddenly and got off him, and offered her right hand to him, still making the seal. Naruto couldn't believe it. He never would have imagined that this skinny girl, who was probably a year younger than him, would be this strong. He forgot to breathe and coughed suddenly. I am weak. He took her hand shakily and stood up, dusting his pants. He didn't look in her eyes. Uchiha Izumi wins. The instructor got his voice under control. The other kids were still gaping. It was to be expected. Her skills would put even some genin to shame. Well, it was kind of expected from the Uchiha princess. Uchiha Izumi was one to keep an eye on for sure. Soon all the spars were concluded, and it became clear that the children who were from a ninja clan had an advantage over their civilian counterparts. As the last of the tests were completed, one of which was throwing kunai, in which he was barely able to get one on the target, and that too was pretty far from the mark, the class standings were put out on the board for everyone to see. Uchiha Izumi got the first ranking by a vast margin. Naruto was among the last 10% of students. Soon, it was evening, and the class got over. Everyone was moving out of the room while talking to their newly made friends. Naruto stood up from his seat and moved out dejectedly, not looking at anything and facing down. When he was out of the academy grounds, he started running and didn't look back. Izumi saw him and frowned. Was I too tough on him? Maybe I should have taken it a bit easier. She shook her head. He ran, and ran, and ran until the buildings blurred into trees and the smell of damp would replace the smell of street food. He reached his usual clearing, the tree near the riverbank. The sun was not yet set, but it was getting close. He fell down on his backside, leaning on the tree with hands behind his head. The branches seemed to move towards him. It was almost like they were trying to comfort him. He took a deep breath. I knew I won't be the best, but I never thought there'd be this much of a difference. It was pretty humiliating, if he was to be honest. He had to get stronger. But how? He would need some basic guidance, it would seem. And if he wants to surpass the kids at the academy, he might have to do something extra, maybe try his hand on the library? It was rare for any of the students to show any interest in books, so no one should disturb him. Yes. He nodded to himself. That sounds like a plan. He would start from the absolute beginning. Naruto sighed and relaxed, looking at the sunset now that his problem was solved. He decided it wouldn't be so bad if he were to stay for a while, and took out his flute from the backpack. No one was waiting at his home. After all, he had his own apartment now. Uchiha Izumi was born on July 9th to Uchiha Fugaku, the Uchiha clan head, and his wife Uchiha Mikoto. When she was born, her father tried his absolute best to feel disappointed and act as distant as he could since he wanted a boy, an heir who would be seen as the pride of the Uchiha. But upon looking into her eyes that contained so much innocence in them, even Fugaku, Uchiha Fugaku, who was known to be as stuck-up as they come, was reduced to a man-child. It was a rumor among the clan that Fugaku cried like a little girl when Izumi uttered her first word, which was Papa. Fugaku managed to get his fatherly instincts under control as Izumi grew up, but his love for his daughter was still undeniable. Mikoto wasn't any better. She was always dressing her up in different clothes, gushing over her. Her best friend, Uzumaki Kushina, was taken by her as well, to the point where she loved her as though she was her own daughter. It played a large part in her recovering from her first child's death, which broke her completely, and Mikoto knew this, so she frequently called Kushina over or visited her. The Uchiha clan as a whole, however, was split. The older generation among the population believed her to only be good for marrying off to another Uchiha, a strong male of their preference. It was because, in Uchiha clan, even though girls are trained well, they are expected to become stay-at-home wives when they get married. On the other hand, the younger generation had a more open point of view. It was also a rumor that when some old Uchiha councilman brought forth this idea, Fugaku had flat-out refused to ever marry his precious daughter and giving her off to some guy, even threatening the old coot with bodily harm if he ever pursues his clearly insane plan, according to him anyway. But rumors are just rumors, right? When Izumi was 3, her father started her training after some polite discussions with his wife. There was no way his daughter, Uchiha Fugaku's daughter, was going to be a weak sissy. And he was pleasantly surprised. His daughter was a genius. She quickly picked up things that any 3-year-old child had no right of doing. Fugaku's chest would have burst from so much pride. When Izumi was 4 years old, her younger brother Sasuke was born. Fugaku was so happy that he almost smiled in front of the doctor. Almost. Now he had a son, and his clearly superior genes would allow Sasuke to be just as talented as his older sister. And he could finally shut up the old coots of the clan. When Izumi saw her younger brother for the first time, she was instantly attached and promised herself to always protect him. Sasuke seemed to return her affections, so that was really cool. When she was 5, her father got her admitted to the ninja academy. She was very excited for the first day. She wanted to make lots of friends and go on awesome missions as soon as possible. Izumi was standing with her parents and her brother while the Hokage gave the welcome speech. Her brother kept insisting her to notice him, almost falling down from her mother's hip. She smiled apologetically. Maybe next time, Sasuke. Her brother pouted and looked away. She followed his gaze and found the same weird and mute kid that she saved that day. She waved at him, and he looked away abruptly. Humph. How rude. She totally kicked his ass for that in the spar that day, but then felt a bit bad after watching him leave so dejectedly. It couldn't be helped though, she'd just have to apologize next time she sees him. When she got home, her father was the first one to greet her. He seemed quieter than usual, but she ignored it. Izumi. She stopped in her tracks. Father, walk with me. I'd like to show you something. The duo walked out, and Fugaku took her hand, guiding her. They passed the Uchiha market, people greeting them on the way. Izumi looked at her father's face and thought about where he would be taking her. Soon they arrived at a large clearing, littered with countless small tombstones and a big red one. These are all the people that were lost in the previous war we won, but it was not without any costs. The countless dead were buried here for some of them, their bodies were not found while for some. Only a part of their bodies remained to bury for their families. Some of them were as young as 9, genin fresh out of the academy, Fugaku said with a grim face. He didn't look at her and stared ahead. Father, why are you showing me all of this? Izumi asked with a trembling voice. She was not used to death despite watching it so closely during the Kyuubi attack. She was acting for her brother's safety, purely on adrenaline. Fugaku's eyes softened, but he didn't look at her. A shinobi's life is never safe. We're in constant danger, even when we are at our home. We might feel like we are safe, but it's just an illusion of safety. A shinobi should always stay on their guard. A good shinobi always learns to distrust people. Those are rules I go by, and it'd be wise for you to do so too. He put his hand on her head. You've started your journey as a shinobi today when you joined the academy. From this day onwards, don't expect me to treat you like a child. His voice was harsh all of a sudden, and he clamped on her shoulder somewhat forcefully. This is the cold reality of our world. Izumi didn't show it if she was uncomfortable. She kept looking at the names on the tombstone. I thought shinobi were supposed to protect, yet so many died. And many of them were so young. Why? Father, why do we kill? What drives a person to kill another person? How can we kill someone, knowing their families were waiting for them, and they will never see them again? Why? Fugaku clamped tightly on her shoulder and allowed himself to feel proud. His daughter was taking this much better than he expected her to. He was afraid she might hate him or start crying. But she showed she could be mature beyond her age when the situation asked for it. That is something I cannot tell you. You will have to find the answer out yourself one day. She did not speak as they walked back to the district in silence. She was still mulling on all of this. Father, do you hear that sound? She asked suddenly. What sound? Fugaku looked around. It's probably some animal. We are still far in the woods. I'll be back later. She suddenly darted in the direction where she heard it. Fugaku raised an eyebrow but shook his head and started walking back home. He didn't have to worry. His daughter rarely got lost, if ever. She followed the sound, which was more like a sweet melody. It felt enchanting to her as she kept walking towards it. She noticed the trees moving, swaying, almost dancing to the melody. She saw as a deer calf was sleeping with who was probably its mother. Looking at the branches, she found a lot of birds sitting on them. The flowers felt more alive to her than ever. It was phenomenal. She followed the sound into a clearing, and what she found shocked her. The sun was set, and Naruto stopped playing his flute. It was getting late, and he supposed he should go back to his apartment now. He proba, "Whoa, you're really good." He was startled suddenly. G-ghost? He was ashamed to admit it, but he was absolutely terrified of ghosts. How do you fight something you can't see or touch? He fell on his bum and frantically looked left and right. The voice sounded like a kid's, and it was familiar for some reason. "Hey! I'm up here!" He looked at the tree he was sitting under and saw that girl who beat him today. She was smiling while sitting on a branch, swaying her legs. "How long have you been watching me?" he asked warily. It was suspicious. "Long enough to hear your beautiful song. You are really good." She grinned at him and winked. Naruto's cheeks had a faint red hue due to embarrassment. He looked away from her to hide his face. "It's rude to spy on people." "Who said I was spying?" "I just heard a sound and came here to investigate. But I didn't want to disturb you, so I was quiet," says the stalker, Naruto mumbled. "Hey!" He stood up abruptly, facing away from her. "You beat me pretty easily today, you're really strong. So, sorry for today, I didn't mean to be so hard. Please be my friend. And help me get stronger." He bowed. "Eh?" Izumi was confused. She was sure he would say something accusing and petty, but friends, well, it's just that he trailed off, scratching his cheek. "Why is this so hard? Is it because this is my first time making a friend?" "Okay." He looked up abruptly, blinking. "Okay, but, no buts. I know. Let's make a deal. Since friends are supposed to help each other, I'll help you to get stronger, while in return, you'll just have to buy me Pocky every Sunday." Naruto deadpanned. "Great. I'll see you tomorrow," she said and didn't wait for an answer, turning on her toes. If one had seen her face, they'd see a relieved expression. She was in a bad mood after her walk with her father. That is part of the reason she ran away so quickly. But now she felt much better. Naruto stood standing for a while, his hair blowing in the wind. He felt oddly excited and a little happy. His first friend. A smile bloomed on his face as he started running back to his home with a skip in his step. It was the start of a beautiful friendship. Naruto ducked under a punch and jumped back, distancing himself from his opponent. He heard more than Seawood shuriken flying at him and deflected them with a stick. Since he was still a student, he couldn't buy real weapons and had to improvise. But it was fine as long as he keeps on improving himself. He couldn't see his opponent anywhere and grew tense, looking from the corner of his eyes. He was alert, knowing his opponent was better than him. He was not given any time and was forced to jump over a leg sweep. He threw a feint, but his opponent expected it, and Naruto clenched his stomach as he felt a punch connect to his midsection. He ended up on his back, wheezing and curling into himself. He coughed and took heavy breaths. "Why you hit really hard, senpai?" It was winter in the land of fire, and it had been snowing heavily all around Konoha for the past week. A thick blanket of snow covered the clearing and trees. He was wearing a white jacket, with black stripes from outside his shoulders along his arms, and an orange undershirt paired with black trousers. He was yet to get up, still breathing heavily, his warm breath visible in the cold. Naruto glared mockingly at the person standing above him with arms on their hips. "Man, both of you are getting incredibly strong for your age. I might have to start pushing myself even more in order to stay ahead." Naruto sat up and started limping towards the river. "I can't see myself surpassing you, Shisui-senpai. You're only 4 years older than me but already a jounin," he said, taking gulps of water from the river. "I'm not even a genin yet." Ever since that day 2 years ago, Naruto started training daily with Izumi. The next day when he went to the library, he issued several books on shinobi history and basics. He was very inspired by Senju Tobirama and Uchiha Madara, Tobirama for his ingenious intellect, and Madara for his absolute destructive battle powers. Many of the modern-day jutsu were based on stuff that Tobirama invented. For Madara, his name was enough to inspire terror within a full-grown man, even after so many years. Another shinobi he greatly respected was Namake's Minato. Even though he was the Hokage for only a year, he was among the strongest shinobi of his time. Till now, he's the only person to have a flea on sight order to his name. However, it was due to the fact that Minato was able to kill the Kyuubi, a being that Naruto was absolutely terrified of, that he respected him the most out of the three. When they first started training together, he was a little more than a punching bag for Izumi. But as the days blurred into weeks into months, he found himself catching up. He started running in the mornings and evenings, strengthening his knuckles and legs by punching and kicking posts. He even learned to call on his chakra after a few months in training. One such day, when they were sparring in a clearing in the forest, Uchiha Shisui noticed them and invited them for a spar. He was older than themselves, but not by much. Shisui was a very humble and down-to-earth individual. He had short, unkempt dark-colored hair and well-defined eyelashes. They couldn't even touch him, but something about them impressed Shisui, and he offered to take them under his mentorship. Since then, they started sparring and doing survival exercise with him whenever they could. Over time, he became somewhat of an older brother figure for Izumi and Naruto. Sometimes when they sparred, Izumi would bring along her brother Sasuke because apparently, that kid loved his sister more than his parents. Sasuke was a cute kid, but he had a borderline antagonistic relationship with Naruto, to their surprise. What did he do? Shisui mainly helped them in honing their speed and technique. Since Shisui said ninjutsu was off limits for now, they couldn't do much in that department. Of course, that isn't to say he didn't teach them any ninjutsu. By the age of 7 and 8, Izumi and Naruto had already mastered the 3 academy basics and shadow clones. Being an Uchiha, Izumi could already do the great fireball jutsu. Naruto got her to teach him, but he wasn't nearly as good. The shadow clone was pretty handy for them because since they were already ahead of academy level, they didn't have to attend it every day. Just sending their clones would suffice. They were all amazed when Naruto managed to make his shadow clone on the first try, even though it took Izumi a while. Shursui told him that he should look into multi-shadow clone jutsu, which takes considerably more chakra, because it turns out he had chakra in spades. It shouldn't take too long. I was given a field promotion, so it was different for me. But I believe you will at least be a chunin by the time you are my age. Shursui grinned at him, and he, too, skipped a stone. Then he threw another stone, and it struck the previous one. Naruto deadpanned. Stop showing off. I can do it too, you know? Oh? By all means, show me. Huh? I mean, yeah. Just look at me. He threw a stone and aimed to throw another one behind it, sticking out his tongue in concentration. As he threw it, both the boys followed it with their eyes, leaning towards the river, one with amusement and the other with anticipation. There was a loud splash all of a sudden. Both of them fell into the river at the same time the stones connected. He resurfaced to see Izumi cackling on the ground, holding her stomach. Sasuke clapped in the background, wearing an oversized jacket and giggling. Naruto spat water from his mouth and got out of the river, hugging himself as his teeth tattered. Oh, what are you laughing at, Shibi? He swore he saw Sasuke smirking at him. You two were taking so long, so I came to get you. Sasuke was nice enough to accompany me. Right, Sasuke-chan? Sasuke laughed again and clapped. Your brother is not nice. Sasuke-chan is an angel. Angel, oh yeah, totally. Is that sarcasm? Since when did you start using sarcasm? Since the day your brother named me his mortal enemy. That never happened. Never mind that, what did you want to talk about? And wait, where did Shursui-senpai go? He said he was going to show me something cool today. Well, he used a substitution jutsu and disappeared when I pushed him in the river. She gave him an embarrassed smile. It was stupid to think that I'd get the drop on him. Anyway, since the academy teachers now know that we can use the shadow clone, which was all your fault, they have been talking about an early promotion. I already told my father, and he was intrigued when I told him that there is another student who is graduating early. More so that I had a friend. Now he wants to meet you, she finished with a slightly forced smile. Naruto looked at her, surprised. They could see Sasuke as he pretended to play in the snow, but his eyes were fixed on Naruto. It wasn't my fault my clone picked up a fight and got itself dispelled when it escalated. Some of them have entirely different personalities compared to me. It was frustrating, to be honest. Anyway, let's go meet your father then. Izumi hesitated. Just a warning, he can be a bit eccentric when it comes to me. Naruto raised a brow and whipped his wet hair, the ice-cold water splashing on Sasuke's face as he stood beside his sister, making him narrow his eyes. It was intentional, and they both knew this. It was well established that one of them always keeps trying to get the better of the other. Naruto flashed him an uncharacteristic evil smirk, much to the Uchiha's childish ire. How bad could it be anyway? Let's go. He hoped he didn't jinx it. Uchiha Fugaku had short, brown hair that reached to his shoulders and onyx-colored eyes, with visible creases below them, the latter of which Izumi inherited on a lesser scale. He wore a simple green kimono with gray pants, with the symbol of Uchiha on the back. He cut an imposing figure with his permanent scowl and stern eyes. Well, Naruto was already nervous. It had been 3 minutes, and no one has yet spoken a word. The three of them were sitting in Fugaku's study. Nearby was a short-legged table with 2 cups of tea, which was probably made by Izumi's mother. Naruto kept looking into the older man's eyes and didn't look away. Fugaku's frown deepened. He had been shocked when he learned from his wife that his daughter managed to make a friend. Typically, it wouldn't be a big problem. His daughter was very cheerful and would probably attract many friends if it were any normal situation. But it wasn't a normal situation. Ever since that night, 4 years ago, the village's higher-ups have been slowly distancing the Uchiha clan from the village center. It was a common rumor among the ordinary shinobi by now that the Uchiha clan was behind the Kyuubi attack. Be it civilians or shinobi, everyone could see the Sharingan spinning in the beast's eyes at the night of the attack. During the attack, the Uchiha police force was tasked by the authorities to ensure the civilians were safely escorted to the shelters, which was suspicious by itself as they were much more suitable on the front lines. And it didn't at any points in their favor when they were asked the critical question, where was your clan that night? It didn't matter if it were the higher-ups that passed the order or Fugaku. What mattered were the consequences due to that decision. A seed of distrust was sown in the general populace. The shinobi, who were good teammates with an Uchiha, started seeing their comrades in suspicion. The other clans pretty much distanced themselves from the Uchiha clan. And someone has been fanning out these rumors recently. Fugaku would bet his right eye it's those 3 old councilmen. Ever since Konoha was established, the Senju has always been the one in authority. Even though Hashirama and Madara played equal parts in building the village, it was Senju Hashirama that was chosen as the first Hokage. The second Hokage, Senju Tobirama, was extremely wary of the Uchiha. Tobirama created the Konoha police force for the Uchiha to run, which was publicly a sign of trust, but the clan felt marginalized. And naturally, his ideals would be inherited by his students. The only exception he could see was Hiruzen, who was pretty much neutral. But even the Hokage has to consider the opinions of his advisors. Shimura Danzo, one of the Hokage's advisors and a very influential person, was the one that took Tobirama's ideologies way too hard, even more than Tobirama himself. He has been one of the people to subtly make the Uchiha clan lose its position. Even though he knows that the clan is probably the most powerful in the whole village and an asset. So why would he want to lose the support of Uchiha? The answer that gives Fugaku both pride and a tiny bit of terror is that Danzo is afraid of the Uchiha. Fearful of it gaining too much standing, power, and reputation. Danzo likes power in his hands, at his beck and call. However, he's afraid that once the Uchiha gain too much power, it would be difficult to control them. So, he subtly spread rumors against them and always watched them like a hawk, using his private A and B route. He had seen those blank masks, after all. He doesn't know how long the clan's patience will last, but if situations keep worsening, he's afraid they might have a coup on their hands. However, those things don't matter nearly as much to him as his daughter Izumi does. Sure, if he was the Fugaku of 10 years ago, he might be having very different views. He knows that his daughter is a genius, so he was not at all surprised when the academy teachers informed him of his daughter's early graduation. However, another student, who claims to have no clan and no past training, manages to do the same. Well, either that boy is a genius or a trained spy, and he cannot be sure what is true when he knows how Danzo recruits his rude agents. Some people, like his clearly much too innocent wife Mikoto, may say he was being paranoid. Well, he was. At least say something. It's been 10 minutes since we sat down, and no one has spoken a word. Quiet, Izumi, Fugaku said, without taking his eyes off a currently sweating Naruto. I need to talk to your friend. Alone. Izumi looked at Naruto, worried, but relaxed once he nodded to her, and stood up. Fine. I'll leave you two alone, she grumbled while shutting off the sliding door. Fugaku kept looking into his eyes, but he stubbornly matched the older man's gaze with his own. Fugaku finally spoke. I can read a person by looking into their eyes, but I won't comment on that. His eyes narrowed. What do you want from my daughter? After watching Naruto squirm under his gaze till now, he could deduce that this boy was no spy, or a rather good one. But he doesn't want to doubt his intuition and admit that the boy next to him is better at acting than he is at looking past illusions. Naruto's eyes widened slightly, but he pinched himself on his thigh and calmed down. She's my dearest friend, he spoke with sincerity. She saved my life once, and I've yet to repay her. I'll walk with her to the depths of hell if she asks me to. He panicked at the last part. Because while what he said might be true, he did not mean to say that out loud. He looked at Fugaku to see him staring at him with an amused smirk. It is impossible to lie to me because of these eyes. His eyes were red, with 3 tomo, and Naruto couldn't look away. Now for my next questions. Fugaku's smirk widened, almost maliciously. Naruto gulped. Mikoto was peeling an apple as she hummed a tune while she sat on her chair in the kitchen. She was a fair-skinned woman with long, straight black hair with bangs hanging on either side of her face to roughly frame her cheeks and black eyes. She wore a simple dark purple blouse with a red plum skirt and a light yellow apron worn over it. She watched as the boy that she told her husband about, Naruto, if she remembers correctly, came running and hurriedly scrambled out of the front door, wearing both his sandals in the wrong feet. Mikoto sent a disapproving glance at her husband, who came out of the room with an amused, almost satisfied smile on his face. Was it really necessary? She frowned. He was such a well-mannered boy. He even brought homemade cookies as a present. She pointed at the packed box on the kitchen table. Yes. His smile turned into a thin, neutral line. Yes, it was. With times like this, you cannot trust anyone, even if it is a mere boy. And he's not naive. Despite being only 9-year-old, he knew I was testing him all this time. He said thoughtfully, if my daughter considers him a friend, then I am willing to put my trust in him. But doesn't mean that I cannot test him to be completely sure. So, are you sure now? Because you have to apologize to him the next time he comes over. And he will. Because I am going to invite him for Sasuke's birthday. My daughter finally has a friend. And it's a cute boy. She put her hands on her cheek, forgetting the apple for now. I wonder if they will get married when they grow up. Fugaku's jaw tensed at that, and his wife noticed. Aha, he passed your little test, didn't he? That means you approve of him as well. A coy smile appeared on her lips. A long-suffering sigh escaped Fugaku as he heard his wife. So, we have 2 students who are being considered for early graduations? It is incredibly rare out of war times, but it would not be wise to hold them back, an old-sounding voice said. Some real-life experience should do them well. Yes, Hokage-sama. Uchiha Izumi, and 1 Naruto. The academy instructor Funino said, kneeling down. Both of them were able to do the 3 basic jutsu, and they can already make shadow clones. While Izumi has always been at the top of the class, Naruto used to be at the bottom during the first few months, but he slowly caught up with her, and now is in 2nd place. I would recommend placing them in the same team with a student from the upcoming graduating class. They have shown a healthy rivalry, which should help both of them to keep growing. The Hokage was quiet for a while as he contemplated. He was reluctant to allow the children to graduate before the proper age, but they could not be choosy now when they were just barely recovering from the Kyuubi's rampage. So be it then, I will allow it. He waved his left in dismissal. You may go now. Yes, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen looked out of the window, his arms behind his back. It was nighttime, and he could see as the store owners were shutting down their shops, the streets were getting empty by the minute. It was times like this that he could enjoy, just looking over at the village that he has led for so long, watching it prosper like this. It was a satisfying feeling. His thoughts shifted to the two children, Naruto more than Izumi, the boy they found in his student's abandoned lab. Even though he absolutely detested his students in human experiments, he was still somewhat interested in the outcome. Out of the 60 kids they found, only 2 were alive. Their DNAs couldn't be matched with anyone, so they were put into an orphanage. He knew Danzo took the other child. While they may differ in their ideologies, he could not deny that Danzo loved the village just as much as he did. It was just his way of doing things that sometimes irked Hiruzen. But he cannot do anything, for he knows Danzo is a necessary evil. The tree leaves that bathe in sunlight can prosper only if the roots that grow in the dark are strong, a balance if you will. Yin and yang. Light and dark. One cannot exist without the other. He rubbed his forehead and thought about other things such as the current situation with the Uchiha. How is he going to solve this mess? Yo, Kakashi! An obnoxiously loud voice called. Hatake Kakashi was a man of few words. His spiky silver hair, an uncaring black-colored eye and a tilted hitai that covered his other eye gave him a unique look. He didn't look up from his book and kept walking, dressed in an armor that vaguely resembled the A&B one, ignoring the voice. The other person followed him. Come on, Kakashi! Do you not want to see? The voice was even louder now. Do you not want to pit your flames of youth against mine? To see who prevails in this passionate duel between 2 hot-blooded men? What type of man are you? The man spoke in a louder voice while making a ridiculous gesture with his hands. Guy. How long have you been here? He spoke coolly. The now identified guy hung his head in defeat, and dark clouds comically appeared above him. Meito Guy was a man with a questionable sense of fashion and a youthful passion. He was a tall and well-muscled man. Having fair skin, a strong jawline, and a somewhat large nose, Guy was most noticeable for his thick brows, shiny bull-style haircut, and his trademark green jumpsuit with orange leg warmers. He turned away from his friend, curses. Your hip and cool attitude won't work on me anymore. If I cannot convince you to have a contest of youthful passion with me, I will run 300 laps around the training field, using only my right hand. And if I cannot do fine. He finally looked up from his book and cast his half-lidded disinterested stare over to Guy, flipping his book into his hip pouch. Fine. But just one match. Our scores are still tied at 72-72. Guy made a sound of victory and put his left arm around Kakashi's shoulder, dragging him along. Naruto watched the 2 teens leave and shook his head. After his hasty retreat from the Uchiha household, he ended up sitting on a bench in the park. The upper half of his face was under the shade from the tree as he tilted his head back. It was a horrible experience with Izumi's father. He was asking questions too close for his heart for his liking. And what made the experience worse was that he was basically held a captive and asked questions to which he could not lie to. And that eye, Sharingan, it wasn't something he was unaware of. He knew Shursui had his own, although he never used it against them. He has heard Izumi always talking about getting hers but never thought much about it till now. But if a simple look from the eye could do this, well, he might have to look for a counter. But what? His stomach made a sound. He stood up from the bench, messing up his hair irritably with his hands. Problems will have to wait for a while. He was feeling hungry, and ramen sounded just perfect right now. A few months later, both of them graduated from the academy. According to the tradition, they were put along in teams of 3. Fortunately, both of them were on the same team. Their third member, however, I can't believe I'm stuck with snot-nosed brats. What are you like, 5? Arg, Izumo Tenma. Tenma developed a reputation as a bully during his last year at the academy. When he first encountered Izumi, he confronted her about her clan's supposed involvement in the Kyuubi attack, wishing for retribution for his uncle's death. Izumi denied any knowledge about the attack and thus refused to apologize. Tenma attacked her, but she managed to avoid him by tricking him with a clone. Tenma was furious to be teamed up with him, prompting their new squad leader to accuse him of being jealous. But he silently gritted his teeth while on the missions to do the job and kept his opinion for times out of duty. When a past mission went wrong, and Tenma was about to lose his life, Izumi saved him, and he reluctantly admitted her superiority and promised to repay her for it. But it didn't mean he had to like her. It has been a year since they were put on Team 2 under Jounin Minazuki Yuki's leadership. Yuki had short dark hair, unkempt eyebrows, and a goatee. He had a tiny mouth. He appeared to be a competent teacher on the outside but had a jealous streak when it came to prospective genin who outclassed him in skill. I'm 9. And you should be grateful to us. Naruto and I are the ones who do the heavy lifting in this team. The team had a strange dynamic. Tenma hated the both of them and was constantly reminding them of the same. Izumi bickered back with him, while Naruto played interference in stopping their fights. Even though the older boy annoyed him, he was still a teammate, and Naruto was ashamed to admit that he didn't have many friends other than Izumi and Shursui, so he couldn't afford to be overly rude to potential friends. Even though they were not the most compatible, it was undeniable that the three of them were close friends. A year of being together in the same team would bring people together, or at least bring along a sense of familiarity. But Tenma would vehemently decline if someone ever asked him about this. They have already completed over 90 D-rank missions and 11 C-rank ones. Team 2 was gaining popularity as a strong rookie team, mainly due to Izumi and Naruto. And right now, they were on a mission to guard the Fire Daimyo himself as he traveled to Konoha, their main concern being getting the Daimyo to Konoha on time, as the roads were expected to be free of danger. Quiet down, you two. Show some respect while you are in Daimyo-sama's presence, their leader chastised. He bowed. I apologize for my shinobi, Daimyo-sama. It's alright, he spoke, chuckling. They remind me of my children when they were still young. Naruto was not looking at them, scouting the area. This was a vital mission, and it was crucial that it goes without a hitch. Their Chunin exam participation depends on it. An unpleasant smell assaulted his nose, making him curious and putting him on guard. It was a smell he had been accustomed to nowadays but didn't mean he liked it one bit. The smell of blood. What is that? The area was suddenly covered in a thick mist, obscuring their view of the path, and everyone was put on their guards. Their leader stopped them with a subtle gesture. Do not move until I say so. The three genin nodded their heads, not like Yuki could see it. The Jounin squad leader slowly made his way into the mist, carefully. His stride was silent and cautionary, searching all around him for any sign of danger. As he went further into the mist, he felt his seasoned senses screaming to him, telling him to get away from this place. To go as far away as possible, but his pride won't allow it. And he never left a mission, ran away due to it being dangerous. Why must he start now? Soon, the visage of a person came within his vision, instantly making him tense his body. There was something about the person in front of him that inspired a deep fear within the man. Perhaps it was the yellow mask with black flame-like patterns, or the waist-length spiky black hair, or quite possibly the spinning blood-red eye visible in the lone orifice in the face mask. An Uchiha, then? Quite possibly a rogue. A dangerous predicament indeed. Are you the one responsible for this mist? He asked with faux casualness. The man didn't say a word, quietly leaning against a tree trunk with his hands crossed and his head tipped a bit. Yuki shifted a bit, making himself comfortable with the surroundings in case a fight breaks out. He had a horrible feeling about this. This is the Fire Daimyo entourage, he said as he flicked a kunai in his left hand. Please step aside, or I'll have to use force. The man finally let out, in a voice that was eerily grave. He made a show of thinking by rubbing his finger on the mask, where his chin was supposed to be. I don't think I will. The clearing erupted into a chaos of blood and gore as soon as he said that. Yuki didn't have any time to blink or scream before he felt a painful tug on his neck, and he felt his world swirl around him. When he stopped, he was horrified to find himself looking at his now headless body. The smell of blood was now almost unbearable, to the point where even an ordinary civilian could identify it. The three genin shinobi tensed and took defensive stances. The daimyo shut the curtains of his royal litter, leaving the guards that were carrying outside terrified. There was a foreboding silence in the clearing for a whole minute, and they feared what might have happened. The mist cleared, and what they saw made their legs weak. Yuki's body was lying in his blood, his severed head lying near the man's legs, a horrifying visage of silent scream etched on his face. Tenma emptied his stomach where he stood. The guards were shaking. Their faces said that they were almost considering letting the vehicle fall and run for their lives. Izumi and Naruto quickly went to the front in a defensive position. This was turning out to be the worst possible situation. The most vital member of their team was down without a fight. Naruto felt his heartbeat escalating, cursing himself as the fear of being weak surfaced yet again. Who's to say the man won't just kill them where they stood? He certainly was capable of doing it, considering he had no problem with their leader. Sorry about that. You see, we had a small disagreement. His tone was entirely unapologetic. He wanted to live, but I wanted him to die. The masked man shrugged, almost casually. This was not a fight that they could win, and they knew it. Naruto looked from the corner of his eyes and escape anything. Izumi's hand shook as she pointed a kunai at the man and shouted, What do you want from us? It doesn't matter what he wants. If we don't do anything, we're going to die. Naruto half shouted, half whispered. The man looked into Izumi's eyes and clicked his teeth in disappointment. One more push. That you are, he confirmed. Tenma walked in front of them with trembling legs at first, then somehow gaining strength and standing firm. He took a kunai out of his pouch, took a stance, his legs apart, and held the kunai with both hands. He looked over his shoulder, directly into Izumi's eyes, with a resigned look, before looking at Naruto, nodding. I'll try to buy some time. Escape as soon as I charge at him. He gulped before calming himself. Hey, at least, I'll not die in dead of a toddler. He charged at the man with incredible speed. For a genin, both of them watched, horrified as a blood-stained sword emerged out of his back, showering the surrounding area in blood. The masked man flicked the blade, and Tenma was thrown aside. Naruto heard an ear-piercing scream, filled with such anguish, and covered his ears. He was horrified to notice that it was coming from Izumi. Her hair was covering her face as she bowed down and cried, still screaming, covering her own ears with her hands. It pained him to watch her like this. The masked man chuckled darkly, and something snapped inside of Naruto. This man killed half his team in cold blood. Tenma was his friend, and even Yuki-sensei's presence felt comforting to him. And now it was just the two of them left. Excellent, the man clapped mockingly. It should make killing you even more enjoyable. You bastard! Naruto looked at the man with unadulterated rage in his eyes. I'll kill you! He found something bubbling inside of himself, but he couldn't care about what it was. He grabbed the feeling within him and pulled at it. Bringing his hands together instinctively, an insane amount of dense chakra built within him. Holding the position, he looked at the man, and then he roared. Trees emerged from the spot beneath the man, splitting the earth and binding him. The trees kept on growing, with thick branches emerging from them. The earth shook. He poured his all in it. Finally, he lost the strength in his legs and went down on both his knees, breathing heavily. The clearing was filled with trees. Luckily, they were in a forest near the village, so it won't look too out of place. He was shocked by this new development. Of course, he knew what it was. He'd have to be an idiot to not know about the legendary wood release. The first Hokage was said to possess it. However, it was not passed down to his children. But how did he use it? Did it mean that he was related to the Senju somehow? There were many questions within his mind, but he shoved them back when he noticed something terrifying. He watched in horror as the masked man walked out of the miniature forest, completely unharmed. He started chuckling quietly. So, it was true after all. I admit I had my doubts about you when Zetsu brought this piece of information to me. After all, it's not every day that a wood-style user is found. It seems that the only thing you two needed was a small push. His work done, the man turned around and started walking away from them. He was out to scout potential members for his organization. And Zetsu had brought an interesting piece of information. The Uchiha princess, said to be the most skilled Uchiha of her generation, one with incredible potential. And a wood-style user with natural affinity. He knew this was one of the kids that Orochimaru used for his DNA mutation project. He would be foolish to assume that the boy's powers were only due to genetic mutations. With the amount of talent he showed for someone using wood release for the first time, no, it had to be a natural user. He might have to visit the snake, it seemed. Maybe he could recruit Orochimaru as well? His body suddenly started getting absorbed in a spiral-shaped distortion. We'll meet again. I hope you two are stronger the next time, he let out before he vanished, for your own sakes. Naruto's face hit the ground as he took wheezing breaths. He didn't show it, but using that jutsu felt like it would almost kill him. His eyes drooped as he hung at the edge of unconsciousness. The last thing he noticed was looking into two concerned red eyes as someone called his name. The next day he woke up in the hospital bed. Apparently, during all the chaos from Naruto's outburst, the daimyo and his guards were able to flee. While Naruto was unconscious, Izumi sealed her teammates' corpses in a scroll and, putting his arm around her shoulders, carried him to a nearby Konoha outpost. A message was sent to the village, and A and B were sent to escort the two genin back home. The mission briefing was delayed by a week by the Hokage. To give them the time to mourn and recover. He was discharged from the hospital in a few hours because he had no physical injuries. The funeral was attended by Tenma's family, Naruto, and Izumi. Yuki lived alone, so no one came from his side, other than a few colleagues. It didn't rain during the funeral. It was a clear, sunny day, which contrasted their feelings. Tenma's mother hadn't stopped shedding her tears, and once in a while she would look at the two of them with clear loathing in her eyes. Almost as if scorning them for being alive when her son wasn't. But she never did approach either of them. They didn't talk to each other, not even inquiring about the other's newly awakened powers, and kept standing motionlessly, even after everyone left. Finally, after hours of standing and doing nothing, the sun set and they went to their separate paths, not looking back. Izumi's parents were worried, but they acted as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. For Fugaku, he had no idea how to console someone, especially a child that had their whole team brutally murdered right in front of their eyes. The atmosphere around the table during dinner that night was very tense. No one spoke a word. Even Sasuke, who was used to talking while eating his dinner, a habit that got him a disapproving glare from their mother every time, was quiet. He could see something was troubling his elder sister but didn't know what. After the dinner was over and Izumi stood up, her mother couldn't take it and embraced her. When her daughter did not return the gesture, Mikoto frowned sadly and reluctantly let her go. Izumi set her plates in the sink and walked outside to their lawn, sitting down at the veranda. She leaned herself against the wooden pillar and feasted her eyes on the cold white light of the beautiful full moon. She was no stranger to death anymore, making her first kill only 4 months and becoming a genin. But the death of her team hit her hard. They were friends, weren't they? What is life? What is death? Why do people kill? She was nowhere near the answer to the question that she asked her father all those years ago. She hated to kill, to steal someone's life, she really did. But isn't that what shinobi do? She took a deep breath, gazing at the full moon, searching the heavenly body for the answers that would not come to her. Hearing footsteps, she glanced over her shoulder and noticed her brother, Sasuke, approaching her. "Nei-san?" Sasuke saw as her face shone silver in the moonlight. Feeling the need to comfort his elder sister, even though he did not know the cause, he did the only thing that he remembered would make his sister happy. He sat beside her and leaned his head in her lap, eventually falling asleep as she lovingly stroked his hair, almost unconsciously. Izumi looked down at her brother's sleeping face and thought to herself, will the day come when you possess these eyes too? The day when you come to know what sadness is? Her red eyes with two tomo in them prickled with tears. She embraced her brother and shed them silently. She was not surprised when she felt tiny arms wrap around her. Naruto walked the busy streets with his hands in his pockets and his back hunched. He had no place in mind. The chatter of the people was drowned on him. He looked up with half-lidded eyes. A full moon. He never realized when he ended up near a small ramen shop. He was not in the mood to cook dinner tonight, so he might as well. He entered the small shop and was instantly assaulted with a mouth-watering aroma. "Welcome to Ichiraku Ramen. What would you have?" A middle-aged man and a girl his age stood behind the stall, bowing while greeting. He could tell this was not a very popular shop, despite the homely feeling he got from the place. "To miso." Right away, he sat on the chair and folded his hands on the stall, putting his chin on them. Naruto felt confused. He had always felt at peace with the nature. The trees would often resonate with his mood, but he always thought it was the imagination of the childish part in his mind. But the wood release doesn't make any sense. Of course, he knew about Orochimaru. Ever since he could go to the library, he has been studying various things, the famous and infamous shinobi being one of them. He realized he was experimented on as a child. Probably snatched from his parents, and then they were killed as well, because when he was subjected to blood tests, they could not find any matches. Either his parents never existed, which was absurd, or their samples were not available. But there was a third possibility that he was leaning towards. Somebody tampered with his reports. But who? At this point, the only one who could know his parents was Orochimaru, and he was out of his reach, being a most wanted criminal and all. He suddenly heard grumbling and looked behind him, noticing a child hiding behind the curtains. A little girl of around 4, with red hair set in 2 pigtails and whisker marks. Realizing that the grumble probably came from her stomach, he took pity on her. Her appearance showed that she has not been eating enough. He gestured to her with his fingers and patted the spot next to him. The child looked shocked and hesitated, just for a second, but then slowly went to the chair and hopped on it, shyly looking at him. "One more miso," he ordered for her. Coming up, the girl slowly broke out of her shyness and waited in anticipation, swaying her legs, often stealing a glance at him when she thought he wasn't looking. Soon their orders were placed, and Naruto was pleasantly surprised. He has been eating ramen for years now, and not one of them came even close to this. His shock must have shown on his face, for he could see the chef smiling proudly. He ended up having 2 more bowls, and to his surprise the girl managed to match him, bowl for bowl. She patted her clearly bloated stomach and burped shamelessly. He looked at her and sighed. Both of them left the stall, and he noticed how short she actually was. "Let's get you back to your home. Do you know where it is?" The girl looked down. "Do you have somewhere to spend the night?" She looked at him with squinted eyes and smiled somewhat embarrassedly, but it seemed incredibly sad to him. The orphanage lady won't let me in anymore. For being a bad infl bad girl. But it was me. They called me a tomato first. She started out quietly, but then her voice grew louder. Naruto was shocked, and he bit his lip. Why would Granny do that? It sounded ridiculous to him. Kicking a little girl out to fend for herself. She heard what he said and looked at him with wide eyes. "You know old lady Gran?" The other kids said that she was very ill, and that she wouldn't be coming anymore. Naruto stopped in his tracks. "But I think that she is just taking care of other kids at some other orphanage. And then she was always kind to me." Naruto wiped his moist eyes and looked at her. "Oi, Chibi, what's your name?" "Uzumaki Natsumi. And thanks for treating me to ramen." "Hee. It was the best, you know." She grinned at him, and for a brief moment, everything stopped mattering as he looked at her. Her smile was so innocent and so pure. What type of monster was this new matron? She smiled a dozen times tonight, but he felt as it was the most genuine one yet. "I'm Naruto. You can sleep at my apartment tonight, and we'll see what we can do tomorrow." He grinned back a little. "Really? And also, your name is Fishka." "Yes. Yes, it is fish cake. Are you happy now?" he said miserably. "What is it with people and his name? Can't they see how cool it is?" "Yes," she giggled. He sighed and kept walking. However, there was a slight smile on his face as he looked ahead. Things may be hard now, but that doesn't mean they won't get any better. He just has to persevere, and he'll find out his answers. Somewhere, in a dark room barely illuminated by a candle, a door creaked open. "Orochimaru-sama," a male voice said. "Everything went according to your plan. The child shows great promise." Yellow slitted eyes widened in sickly glee. Uzumaki Natsumi was born on the dreaded night of October 10th, 4 years ago. A night when many people in Konoha lost someone they loved. A night of dread and terror. She was put in an orphanage in the earlier months of her life. The first intelligent observation that she made was that people would treat her differently they would treat others. Maybe she did something wrong without knowing it. It was a thought that she often had, and almost accepted it. By the time she was 3, there was only one person who did not look at her with scorn, the old matron of the orphanage. But soon she, too, stopped seeing her. There were rumors about her bad health. It made her feel sad. When the new matron came, her worst fears were proven true. She looked at her with those same eyes as everyone else, eyes filled with hate, disgust, and fear. The other kids learned from her. Obviously, if the new matron didn't like the weird girl, then something was clearly wrong with the redhead. They started to treat her the same. They never let her play with them, and there were 2 kids who kept stealing her food, but when she complained to the matron, all she got was a slap on the cheek for lying. So, she stopped complaining. The 3 kids were emboldened by this and started to tease her daily. And she too started taking it in stride when it became a daily occurrence. But one day, she had enough. "Oh, what's this?" a whiny voice said. "You finished your lunch already? Where is our part?" The last part was followed by a light shove on her shoulder. "Looks like she needs to learn her lesson," another childish voice said, followed by another shove, rougher. She glared into their eyes and ground her teeth. "I'm not giving you anything. The dumb lady only gives me half of what everyone else gets," she shouted, and her face got a slight red hue with anger. "Say that again, you freak," I said. "I am not giving you anything." She ground out each word separately, clenching her teeth. The 2 kids laughed. "Look! Look! She's turning red, just like her stupid hair." One of them grabbed a fistful of her hair. "She's like a tomato." Soon, all the kids present started laughing. She felt her cheeks burn with humiliation but focused on the 2 boys who were yanking on her hair. "Tomato! Tomato! Tomato!" Slamming her plate on the table with a rattle, she rounded up on them, grabbing the hand that was in her hair. "I am not a tomato!" she shouted and bit the hand that was grabbing her hair hard. The boy cried and started punching her face to make her stop. She bit even harder. "Arg! Stop! Stop! No!" The other kid came to the rescue and started kicking her. She left the first boy and tackled him, throwing him on the ground and sitting on his chest, punching his face. "Punch! I punch! Not punch! A tomato!" Her face was bloody, and her red hair was in a mess. There were no tears in her eyes though, just anger as she took heavy breaths. She finally stopped hitting him, and the 2 slightly older boys scrambled away. She took a calming breath, but then noticed the silence that had encompassed the whole room. "She's a monster!" The lady was right. The children started to whisper among themselves. "I'm scared of her." They observed her cautiously, as if avoiding a wild animal, and inched away from her when she walked by them. She didn't give them any response as she dragged herself to the washroom. She stood up on a stool in front of the mirror to see herself but only saw a broken little girl in the mirror, and tears prickled in her eyes as her lower lip quivered. She looked pathetic. "You animal! Come here!" The lady grabbed her by the forearm and roughly pulled her along. It was inevitable, she knew it. This is why she never fought back. She could see the 2 beat-up kids, standing with the other kids, looking way too smug for some bullies who just got their butt handed to them by a little girl. It was clear that they complained to the matron, and she finally got an excuse to throw her out. "Don't come back again. This is a place for kids, not for freaks." She threw her out and shut the door. "Ah!" The girl hit the ground on her face, yelping as she unsuccessfully tried to balance herself with her hands, to do something to stop the momentum. Her eyes were wide and trembling as she got on her unsteady hands and knees. She hoped against hope that she would hear the door would creak open any time now, that they won't lock her out alone, to fend for herself. One long look at the closed door, and her hopes were crushed. She picked herself up and dusted her clothes. It was the only thing she had on her right now. The whisper of the crowd that had gathered to watch the commotion reached her ears as she stiffened. She didn't notice there were so many people. But they weren't approaching her to help her. No one was. No one ever did. And their eyes. "Look! It's that kid. Hate. Don't look at her. You don't know what she would do." Fear. The freak got what was coming for her. KH. Look at the nerve. To walk amongst us, pretending to be a little girl. Loathing. She kicked the orphanage gate in anger and turned away, not wanting to hear their murmurings, running to the only place where she knew no one would look at her with eyes like those. Where no one would deny her existence. Or call her names. The village of Konoha was vast, she noticed. Sitting on the 4th head on the mountain, she looked down at the village. The whole village seemed to be mocking her as she sat there, observing the perfect families. She saw children playing and laughing as they sat on their parents' shoulders, saw the obvious love between them. Maybe her parents would have done the same with her if they were together. Her eyes grew heavy. Maybe it won't be too bad for her to just let go. It will hurt, but only for a moment. Then she will finally be with her dad and Mo. She squashed the thought like a bug and stood up tall as a 4-year-old could be. Taking a deep breath, she shouted at the top of her lungs, "My name is Uzumaki Natsumi." She raised her hand to the sun and looked through it, "And I'll make all of you acknowledge me one day. Remember it, you know." She grinned brightly, her previous mood broken, and she laughed to herself. She won't give up. Won't let them break her. It felt good to do that. That night, she would meet Naruto for the first time, scrambling to find something to eat. And he would call her and look at her with those concerned eyes, completely different to what she was used to. And he would ask her the most important question. "Oi, Chibi, what's your name?" She truly smiled for the first time in her life. She finally found someone who accepted her existence. Made her feel that she was not the monster or the freak but Uzumaki Natsumi. "And thanks for treating me to ramen. It was the best, you know." She wanted to cry out of sheer joy for the first time, but she squinted her eyes as much as she could and gave him a toothy grin. "So the Hokage scratched his graying beard. This masked man killed your team, Jonin Minazuki Yuki and Genin Izumo Tenma. And you, Naruto, discovered that you can use wood style and Izumi awakened her Sharingan," the Hokage summarized. "Yes, Hokage-sama." They spoke simultaneously, voice devoid of emotion. There was silence for a while as the Hokage took a puff from his pipe. "I'm truly sorry for your loss. As the Hokage, it pains me when any of my people die. I hope you two will be alright. It was truly a tragedy, and we will be looking further into it." He took a weary breath. "But on to other matters. We cannot allow the knowledge of Konoha having two wood-style users to spread, until at least you reach the rank of Jonin." The wood release was no mere bloodline. If word were to spread that the first Hokage's bloodline limit still exists, it would cause unrest among the other nations. The leaders would send assassins after Naruto in order to kill him before he reaches his full potential. The peace right now was shaky at best. Naruto looked at him, shocked. "There's another one? I know what you must be thinking, and yes, it is true. I believe that you two are somewhat acquainted already. He was able to awaken his affinity quite earlier. From what I've been told," he said, "for the next Chunin exams, we'll have him as your third team member. I'll arrange for one of my Jonin to act as your squad leader for the time being, and I have no doubt that both of you will succeed." He smiled in the end. "We'll not let you down, Hokage-sama." Good, you may leave now." He dismissed them and looked at his paperwork in sadness. Izumi looked at Naruto and raised her brow when he didn't move. He shook his head. She shrugged minutely and went out of the office, leaving the two of them. "You have something else to say?" He didn't look up from his desk as he concluded. "Yes, Hokage-sama. Permission to speak freely?" "Granted. Yesterday, I found a child, a little girl, Uzumaki Natsumi." Hiruzen tensed at the name, but that was all. She was barred from entering the orphanage by the matron and had no place to sleep for the night. The Hokage gripped his paperwork tightly as he heard. "I offered her asylum in my apartment for the night. However, now I'm not sure what to do. I do not consider myself capable of taking care of a child. She is waiting on the other side of the door as we speak." Hiruzen was saddened by this information, but he couldn't say he was shocked. He was afraid somehow the information regarding her Jinchuriki status would leak, and it would come to this. But he had faith in his people, in their will of fire, but it seems his faith was misplaced. He frowned. The majority of the population of Konoha was hostile towards her. He could not trust anyone to not kill her while she sleeps if he assigns a guardian for her. The only thing he could do now was give Natsumi her own apartment, and have his ANBU guard her from the shadows. "Well, first, send her in," he called to his receptionist in a soft voice. Natsumi meekly poked her head through the gate and looked around. Noticing some old man and Naruto talking, she made her way to him, grabbing the hem of his shirt and hid behind his legs. "I'll talk to her and take it from here. You may leave." "Yes, Hokage-sama." He bowed and sent her a reassuring smile before leaving. Later that evening, he was taking a stroll in the market area when he noticed something. He was being followed. Naruto weaved his way through the crowd, into different stores and circled around the area for a while. He was still being followed. Realizing he couldn't shake them off easily, he decided to confront them. He reached a clearing, and before he could call them out, he was alerted to the telltale signs of Shunshin. Dropping in a guarded stance with his right hand hovering above his hip pouch, he noticed that the person following him was an ANBU. Well, at least he resembled an ANBU, other than the blank mask. ANBU shinobi wear animal face masks, of that he knew. "Genin Naruto, Danzo-sama wishes to meet with you. You are to be at this address in 30 minutes. He handed him a slip. "Do not make him wait." Another Shunshin, and he was gone. Naruto checked the address and sighed. Why would some old council advisor want to meet him? Naruto reached the place but noticed there was no one present. It looked like an old training ground, a large area for sparring, weights, training posts, and other training equipment. It was located underground and had rough walls of stone. Even though it looked old, it was pretty evident that someone still used this training ground. "You need to be more aware of your surroundings if I am to teach you, young shinobi." An old voice rasped out from behind him. Danzo had been watching him ever since Naruto arrived, hiding in the shadows and minimizing his presence. He was surprised when Hiruzen confronted him earlier today. He was informed that this young ninja in front of him has shown potential to use the wood style to an even greater extent than his other student. While he would not doubt the Hokage's words, for he had no reason to lie, he was still skeptical. Hiruzen allowed him to get away with many things, such as letting him take the liberty to use Senju Hashirama's personal scrolls for his techniques when he wanted to train his other student in wood style. So now, he has to repay the favor by teaching this young genin in front of him. It wasn't really a bad thing. He was all for strengthening the shinobi of Konoha, as long as they don't become too powerful for him to control. After all, when he becomes the Hokage, he cannot allow anyone to be his equal, or worse, his better. Naruto spun around and relaxed upon seeing him. He gave a customary bow. Honored Elder Danzo-san. Danzo tapped his cane on the ground. I am to teach you to hone your abilities in wood release and your instincts since I've been made aware. Danzo kept his piercing gaze on him. For the next 4 years, we will train here daily. And I do recommend you take these years seriously. I will not waste my time with someone who is not motivated to learn. Naruto was shocked, but he thought it was for the best. However, he was still somewhat wary of the one-eyed old man. When he first met Fugaku, Naruto was warned to stay away from him. Fugaku didn't give out many details, but he didn't hold the old councilman in high regard. That much was certain. I'm thankful. I almost killed myself when I awakened my bloodline limit. I do not wish this gift of mine to go to waste. His tone was respectful and even. You must be familiar with my other student. Danzo performed a subtle hand gesture, and someone jumped in front of them, kneeling. Stand up, Kino. Danzo-sama. The new arrival wore an old-style Hittite, reminiscent of Senju Tobarama's and A and B gear. But he had no mask. Tenzo? Tenzo/Kino looked irritated for a moment, but then returned to his emotionless mask. Kino here will be your third team member when you undertake the Chunin exams, later this year in the village of Kumogakure. Naruto looked in shock at him. You are to show the might of Konoha to the whole world. Konoha belongs to the top of the 5 great nations. It is time that they realize it. Unfortunately, you are not permitted to use the wood release yet. While Kino here has a higher mastery of the element, as he has been training for longer than you do not. If you depend on an unmastered ability, it will bring you more harm than good. Naruto nodded, accepting the conditions and logic. He didn't think he was going to use this ability anytime soon. Given the last time he used it, he almost died. You may go now. Be here by the same time from tomorrow. It was evening by the time Naruto got home. Tenzo had left earlier with his teacher, the older boy not sparing him a second glance. Truth to be told, he was excited about this new training. He and Izumi are equals, so this should give him an edge. But then again, her Sharingan was another factor that would even the field. She was plenty good even without it. He could not imagine how strong she would get once she masters her eyes, but that was the reason why they were rivals. They had little to no gap between their skills, but they kept pushing each other to improve. He doubted that there was a genin who would be able to defeat any of them. He still hasn't talked to her after the death of their teammates. Even earlier today, in the morning, they made eye contact for the briefest of times. He could see that something in her has changed a bit. Somehow, her eyes, which used to be warm, appeared to be colder now. He remembered how she acted when their teammates were killed, and it was clear that their death affected her more than it did to him. He'll have to check on her later. He noticed something by his door, or rather someone. Natsumi? What happened? She was standing outside his door, wearing new clothes. Old man Hokage is so cool. He even said that I can stay next door in the same building as you, and I won't even have to pay for it until I become a badass ninja. Meanwhile, Naruto looked at her with growing horror. Old man, and put his hand on her mouth. He looked around. No! Don't call him old man, he is the Hokage of our village, the most respected and strongest person in the whole village. If someone catches you calling him old, but he said he doesn't mind at all. I swear! She said quickly, not wanting to cause any trouble. But one thing stuck in her mind. Say, is what you said really true? That old man is the strongest, and everyone respects him? Of course. He is the longest reigning Hokage of our village, retaking his title after Yondaime killed the Kyuubi, but lost his life in the battle. Whoa, she had stars in her eyes as she looked at him. Can I become a Hokage too? Can I? Well, he said and cupped his chin, maybe you should ask Hokage-sama the next time you meet him? He's the most appropriate person to talk to about this after all. Natsumi nodded sagely. What's APR appropriate? Well, they would need to work on her language, it seems. Hyuga Hinata was the sole heiress to the noble Hyuga clan. A clan which was pronounced for its unique bloodline limit, the Byakugan. The Byakugan was feared throughout the nations for the great visual prowess that it grants the wielders, including a near 360-degree field of vision, ability to see through objects, and telescopic vision. The strength varies from user to user. The Hyuga clan had 2 branches, the main branch and side branch. Hinata was born in the main branch to Hyuga Hayashi and Hyuga Hitomi. Her mother died when she was an infant, thus leaving Hayashi to raise her alone. Hayashi, racked with grief over the loss of his wife, determined to be the best father to her daughter. He started training her daughter, along with his nephew, in the art of gentle fist, and he was pleased to notice that both of them were very talented. Niji more so than Hinata, but he was still immensely proud of them both. But of course, he was not supposed to show any emotions, so he never really complimented them too much. Thus, she was not as timid as some people would make her out to be. Her first cousin, Hyuga Niji, was born to Hayashi's younger twin Hisashi, and thus, marked as a branch member when he was 3 years old. But he still loved his younger cousin dearly. He was told by his father that an older brother's duty is to protect his younger sister, and he would follow the advice to his heart. Today was Hinata's 4th birthday, and the Hyuga clan was having a celebration for their heiress. Many influential people and families were called, except the Uchiha. Mainly because of the growing tensions between the Uchiha and the village, and their own rivalry. The Hokage briefly attended the feast as well, but had to leave in a hurry due to having an important meeting with a Kumo envoy. The Hyuga clan grounds were anything but plain. If someone were to look at it, it wouldn't be too far off for them to assume that they have somehow returned back in time. Old-style buildings with fish ponds and small gardens. It was indeed a sight to see. A 5-year-old Niji was standing with his father, holding his hand. He watched from a distance as Hinata was presented with various gifts and congratulations. Niji smiled upon seeing his sister's face, practically glowing with happiness and a small amount of nervousness. He looked at his hands and made a fist, promising himself, "I'll protect that smile as long as I have these hands." Soon, it was night, and the celebration was over. The guests had all returned to their homes, and everyone in the Hyuga manor was asleep. Everyone except Niji, that is. He couldn't sleep as his stomach felt bloated. Probably from all the sweets that he ate today. But what could he do? He loved sweets. He thought he heard some noise from outside but waved it off as someone from the clan. Clearly, no one would be foolish enough to infiltrate one of the 4 noble clans of Konoha. He heard something again and grew alert. Standing up silently, he made his way to the noise. Niji went out of the manor, but he couldn't see anyone. He was just about to activate his Byakugan when something, or rather someone, dropped on top of him with such force, knocking the 5-year-old out instantly. The Kumo shinobi let out a sigh of relief. He was almost caught. If the kid had managed to see him, he would have undoubtedly made things difficult. He adjusted the wriggling bag under his arm and made his way out of the clan grounds, being sure to be as quiet as possible. So, Kumo offers a peace treaty? It sounds too good to be true, considering your Raikage's well-known dislike for Konoha. The Kumo envoy squirmed under the Hokage's gaze. Truthfully, his mission was just to buy some time for his partner to kidnap the Hyuga heiress and then bullshit his way out of the meeting. He was under the impression that the Hokage was old and would be easy to fool. He didn't think he was going to be facing Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo. Danzo was not an easy man to fool by any means. He was cold, calculating, and obsessively loyal to Konoha. Or at least, his view of what Konoha should be like. After their loss in the last war against Namake's Minato, they had suffered greatly. They could not be sure, but the man was even more ruthless than he usually appeared to be. Almost as if taking out his anger on something else. He fought like a man possessed. The current Raikage, was soundly beaten to his knees, and then Minato humiliated him by sparing his life. If only out of sick amusement, the Raikage had fled with his tail between his legs. But he promised to bring vengeance upon him. Unfortunately, Minato was dead now, with no family members left that he knows of, so what better way to get his revenge and acquire a powerful asset for his village at the same time? He capitalized on the peace-loving 3rd Hokage to jump at the chance of a peace treaty. And he was correct to do so. Unfortunately, he, too, forgot to take into account the man's shadow, the shinobi of darkness, Shimura Danzo. Whatever your Raikage is plotting, we need no part in it. Konoha will stand at the top of all the 5 nations, and then Kumo and Iwa will be nothing more than side characters. Danzo said in a smug voice, not letting his lone eye wander from the man in front of him. Even if I do want peace and do not share the exact same views as my old friend, Danzo scoffed at that, making him smile. I'll have to admit that the timing for this proposition is a little too suspicious. And your terms are very vague. The Kumo envoy gritted his teeth and made a show of getting upset. He was sure he had bought enough time by now. He bowed. I'll take my leave then, Hokage-san, Shimura-san. I wish you good health. After the envoy left hurriedly, Hiruzen looked at his rival and nodded. That fool Raikage is plotting something nefarious. It would be best to exercise caution. Hound! A gray-haired masked man appeared in front of them, kneeling. Follow him, and make sure he doesn't wander around too much. Yes, Hokage-sama. After the NBU left, Danzo looked Hiruzen in the eye and said, that boy Naruto is something else. His affinity for wood release is so potent, I dare say he may become an even greater asset than our Shodame-sama. Kino doesn't even come close. He was somewhat rough around the edges, but I've helped him develop his senses for the last 3 months. Hiruzen masked his shock quite well. Truthfully, he had assigned Natsumi to live next door to Naruto for multiple reasons. First was that the boy clearly held no ill feelings towards the girl. He might change his views once he learns of her status. He would be most disappointed if it comes to that. So, the girl had someone to turn to if she needed anything. Hiruzen would be lying if he said she didn't grow on him. It was always refreshing to talk to her, and recently, the girl had expressed her desire to become Hokage. He had chuckled when she said that. Of course, her reasons were childish, but she had spirit. Maybe she could actually do it. Who knows? The second reason was to keep an eye on Naruto, using the same ANBU that guarded Natsumi. He wasn't questioning the boy's loyalty, but he was afraid that his ideals might change after spending so much time around Danzo. That would be no good. He took a gamble when he had asked Danzo to train the boy. It was for the best, he had reasoned. Danzo had already taught one student and would release, and Hiruzen had let him get away with studying his old teacher's scrolls. And if it helps the next generation to grow stronger, he was ready to take risks. Surely you jest. Hashirama-sama was in a league of his own. If the boy has even greater potential than him, well, I'm inquisitive about his lineage. It was a pity we could not find it out the last time we tried when he was found. Maybe we should try again, Danzo thought for a while. I will have a look into it. He stood up, tapping his cane, and I'm not your old friend. Danzo left, and Hiruzen smiled to himself. Some things never change. Naruto looked around frantically as he was submerged in quicksand. He could not get out of it, no matter how hard he tried. He started thrashing, but it only made things worse. So, he calmed down. Concentrating on his dense chakra, he called on it. Chakra flowed through his coils like a water pipe that would burst, and he released it all at once. Kai! He fell on his behind, back in the clearing that he was training in, and blinked. Good, that was quicker than the last time, but you need to be faster and use less chakra. You would be dead 10 times over if I wanted to kill you. Or if by chance you survived me, you will attract every shinobi in the near vicinity. He had asked his mentor to help him against the Sharingan, and Shursui saw no reason to decline. He had already taught the both of them Shunshin. He even got to mess with Izumi this way, when she will undoubtedly notice Naruto's resistance to her eye. It will be fun. He rubbed his hands. Why are you giggling like that? Naruto looked at him strangely. His laugh was somewhat disturbing. Oh, nothing, he said distractedly, just thinking about how to mess with Izumi and Sasuke. That boy is very fun to tease. He clings to his sister like a monkey and never has anything nice to say to me, so I'm sorry if I don't consider him as fun. Well, he'll come around. He's just jealous of you hoarding his dear sister to yourself, all the time. He poked him in the ribs. Don't do that. If you, he stopped abruptly. Do you hear that sound? Shursui's face grew serious, and he nodded. Both of them jumped into the trees and erased their presence. The Kumo shinobi ran as fast as he could, with a struggling bag under his arms. He supposed he should have knocked out the insufferable brat, but he was in such a hurry that he did not bother with it. He stopped in a clearing and looked around, and then opened the sack. Okay, you brat. Go to sleep now, ha. As soon as he opened it, Hinata jumped out with an angry expression, her Byakugan active, and swiftly delivered a gentle fist strike to the shinobi's groin. The shinobi dropped to his knees, and his vision grew hazy, cradling his crushed ornaments. He saw red and got up shakily. Why, you stupid bitch! He was about to slap a now slightly scared Hinata, her fury forgotten in front of her angered foe, and raised his hand. It was stopped when a kunai was pierced through his hand. Naruto dropped to the ground and kicked his feet from under him, hitting the still incredibly disoriented shinobi with enough strength to knock him out. He looked around to comfort the young girl when he saw her looking at him with a strange expression. She had stars in her eyes as she looked at her savior, his lean moonlit face, wild golden locks, and violet eyes. Of course, she has heard the stories where a prince saves the princess. And she has finally found her destined one. It had to be. She was about to thank her savior and ask for his name when they heard a rustle in the leaves. Another Kumo shinobi walked out of the bushes. He had been running for a while now, avoiding the village center area. This was the place that they agreed to meet upon, but he could see that something clearly went wrong. His partner was lying on the ground, unconscious, still cradling his groin, and 2 brats were standing atop of him, one of them their targets. This was bad. Maybe if he retreats now and proclaims that the man was acting on his own, he would still be fine. He started walking backwards, but he found something blocking his way. The Hound Master Anbiyu was standing in his way. Even with that mask on, he could still make out his smug expression. Going somewhere? Kumo Shinobi-san, he waved his hand in mock greeting. The Kumo envoy knew his chances were dim. He gritted his teeth and ran towards the only exit left. He didn't make it far before Shursui dropped in front of him. We didn't even have the pleasure to make your acquaintance. You won't go without saying goodbye, will you? Shursui grinned after he said that. The shinobi looked around and noticed he was surrounded and accepted his defeat. He dropped on his knees and raised his hands. I surrender. At this point, it was the only way he would survive. Well, even if he makes it back home in one piece, the Reikage will kill him for sure. Hyuga Hayashi was angry. No, that would be wrong. Hyuga were not supposed to show any emotions, but somehow, one could see the absolute visage of cold fury etched on his face. Even if he never showed any affection towards his daughter, Hayashi truly loved her, to the point he'd kill anyone if it meant keeping his daughter safe. Hinata's attempted kidnapping and the attack on his nephew was weighing heavily on his inner turmoil. Hayashi wanted blood. His brother Hizashi was not feeling any better, but sometimes people don't get what they want. There was one thing that he was especially proud of his daughter for, however. The kidnapper was never going to reproduce again. Hayashi allowed a smile on his face, of course, when no one was looking, and made it sure to pat his daughter's head. Niji was not any better and was sulking because of his inability to protect his cousin. But after telling him that he never had any chance against a skilled jonin in straight battle, he calmed down somewhat. At least his sister was safe. They were in front of the Hokage. Naruto was specially called by Hayashi's request, who was told about him from his looks alone by a still slightly dazed Hinata. Hayashi was not sure why his daughter used the word prince, but he would let it slide. I, Hyuga Hayashi, am in your debt. He bowed. Even if my daughter managed to distract him for a while, he would have undoubtedly overpowered her. If you ever need anything, know that the Hyuga are standing behind you. Naruto scratched the back of his head and smiled embarrassedly. Hiruzen was looking with an amused smile. It was not every day one would see the Hyuga clan head like this. Please stand up. A man of your stature should not bow, Hayashi-sama. I did what anyone would have done in my shoes. His tone was respectful. Regardless, you have my gratitude. Naruto nodded respectfully. A shinobi dropped in front of them, addressing Sarutobi. Hokage-sama, our TNI experts have made them accept their crimes. The official statements are here. He gestured to the folder in his hand. Excellent, Hiruzen let out. Konoha will have a huge political advantage against Kumo now. They cannot attack us without any provocations on our side, but we already have the reasons to do so. However, I'll pressurize the Reikage to sign a peace treaty on our terms, holding this statement above him. Hayashi's mood noticeably soured upon not getting any retribution. It seems infertility was the only retribution he was going to get. 2 days later, in the village of Kumogakure, a muscled dark-skinned man was aggressively lifting his weights, as he watched his 2 shinobi squirm before him. So he let out in a menacing voice, not only you failed, but now Konoha has an advantage over us. Damn it! He punched his desk out of his office through the window. I'll show them in the Chunin exams Kumo won't lose in its home. Neru, why did everyone leave? I don't know. It's been 4 months since Natsumi moved to the apartment next to him, but slowly, all the residents, except him, were leaving the place to live elsewhere. For some reason that he could not fathom, people tend to avoid her. Most of the adults just stared at her from afar, various emotions on their faces, ranging from disgust to fear. Naruto was not an idiot. Of course, he realized that there was something different about her. Even the Hokage seemed to give special attention to her. But what was it? They were going to the nearby park, partly because he was done training with Danzo for today and partly because Natsumi was bothering him to take her. He supposed this was what the Hokage had in mind when he gave her the adjacent apartment, but he didn't mind. She was pleasant to be around, and her cheerfulness affected him as well. And surprisingly, she never asked him for any help, other than when she just wanted to talk or go out somewhere. They got to the park and found it was somewhat filled. There were a lot of kids playing ninja or tag. He never played any games with others when he was their age, but it did seem fun. Why don't you go and play while I sit here? Naruto went to the swings and sat on one. Maybe they will let you play today? No, they won, she said meekly. They have already visited this park twice in the last few months, and he noticed that the kids never allowed her to play. He never had much experience in making friends since he was pretty much a loner. Well, he still is, but that's not the point. She sat on the swing beside him, and both of them just watched the kids play. And Naruto had a strong sense of déjà vu, Granny telling him to go and make friends with kids his age. Him coming to the park and just watching others as he sat alone on the swing, practicing his flute. At that time, he did not think of it much. But he now realized how pitiful it actually was. He looked at her sad face and stood up. Where are you going? Nowhere. He went behind her and pulled the chains of her swing, giving it a push. Natsumi blinked when she realized what was happening, and slowly a smile bloomed on her face. She laughed merrily as she swung higher and higher. Hi, no. Not so high. Naruto's mischievous little smile was the only response to her words. Danzo fiddled with the papers in his hand anxiously. These were the blood reports that he had asked one of his root Anbu to bring. Naruto's reports. Of course, he had his doubts. But he was under the impression that, maybe, his parents were some of the stronger ninja, probably lost in the Third War. But this, incredible, how could this have stayed hidden for so long? He's practically royalty. He looked at the papers one by one. Reports matched with Namikaze Minato, Uzumaki Kushina, and Senju Tobarama? How? And Hiruzen had no idea about this. They managed to hide Kushina's first pregnancy, even from his root. This didn't make any sense to him at all. The only reason that this would be possible was if someone was actively trying to hide Naruto's identity. But who? Don't you know that too much curiosity gets the cat killed, HM? Danzo? A slithering voice said. He noticed a sudden movement from the corner of his eye, and his Anbu was down on the ground the next second. There was no doubt who it was. Orochimaru. His voice was calm as he spoke. Why have you come here? I did not order you to bring me my replacements, yet don't make me decide that you have outlived your usefulness. Or I will end you. The dark room was filled with mocking laughter as the visage of a man came into view. He had a tall and thin body with shoulder-length black hair. His skin was sickly pale, and his eyes were shaped like those of a snake. Your sense of humor has not aged well with time, I see, to believe that you can order me to do something. His facial expression changed into an amused smile. Regardless, I cannot allow you to tamper with my plans now, can I? I came as soon as I could when my informant told me that you were snooping around. 17's heritage cannot be brought out in the open right now. It would bring too much attention. Why do you even care? Why do you care what happens to the boy? Danzo ignored the jab and focused on the more important part. He didn't need to ask who 17 was. They were talking about the same person. I've got plans for him. Plans that are none of your business. I don't want him to get killed before that. His voice got serious. Remember this. The only reason you could get your hands on this information is because of my own amusement. I allowed it. Now you will be left with this truth in your stomach, with no one to babble to. Because if you do, a malicious smile came over his face. I'll decide that you have outlived your usefulness and end you. He was having too much fun teasing Danzo. Danzo gritted his teeth. He was at a disadvantage here. The biggest problem is that he needs Orochimaru for the continuous supply of his most powerful weapon, his arm made of Hashirama cells. Unfortunately, it decays with time. And the only people who could make one are Senju Tsunade and Orochimaru. He'd have an easier time taking the first Hokage's necklace from Tsunade than to force her to build him an arm made of her grandfather's cells. Something was still bothering him, though. How does Hiruzen not know of this? And how is he related to Tobirama-sensei? Surely, you would sate my curiosity. Because, of course, I will not be babbling, as you've put it. Orochimaru chuckled amusedly. My dear foolish sensei, he saw the child get buried. And let's just say, because of the enhancements that I performed on him, 17 underwent physical changes. He shook his head. So, he now looks nothing like the boy that was buried back then. And Minato was the only one who could decipher and utilize the Hiraishin. A technique so dangerous that Senju Tobirama made sure that only his descendant may make use of it. You may draw your own conclusions. Either Tobirama hid his family from the whole world, or well, he just had a bastard son or daughter which he himself did not know of. He knew his sensei very well. Hiruzen saw the dead child with his eyes that night. And he himself left the village when the Third War was in its final stages. Of course, a Hokage has to put his nation above two no-name orphans. So, all it took was some indirect tampering of his records, and his sensei was none the wiser. He chuckled amusedly, remembering how it all started. What is the meaning of life? Orochimaru has always asked himself the same question. And he ended with the same conclusion every time. Life has no meaning at all. It is a fleeting dream. One that you may wake up from any time. Human life is fragile. One may lose it at the swing of a sword. But what if it wasn't? What if one could live forever, finding out all the secrets of this world, master all that there is to learn? What then? Life has a meaning all of a sudden. All your progress, all your work, it won't go down the drain when you die, because you won't die at all. He has seen plenty of death in his life. Once he was but a little boy, terrified in this wretched world of violence and deceit. His parents were murdered in front of his eyes, but then he found friends in his teammates and his sensei. And he felt content for a while. Even happy, he might say. Jiraiya was a buffoon, always goofing around and hitting on any girl he sees. He might have been an idiot, but life was never boring with him around. Tsunade was like a sister to him, but she scared him when they were kids. Well, she still did somewhat, considering her monstrous strength that can crush mountains. Orochimaru was not a fan of getting punched by Tsunade. That honor should go to his friend Jiraiya, who miraculously comes back alive after every punch. But then he makes a perverted comment, and the cycle would repeat. When his parents were killed, it seemed like the roof on his head was gone, and he was standing in the rain, all alone. But then Sarutobi-sensei came, and shielded him from it all, like a parent would. However, this was but the fantasies of an immature boy. Reality came crashing down on him when the three of them fought in the Second Great War. No, 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 no! You can't die! The voice was a female, with noticeable distress in her tone. I won't let you go like this. Tsunade used every ounce of medical knowledge that she had as she scrambled to treat her dying lover. It was a pitiful sight, one that made him reconsider the transient nature of life. And he realized something. He never wanted to feel what Tsunade felt back then. He never wanted to feel the pain of loss. But what could he do about it? Strong as they might have been, the three of them could die at any time. All it would take was a slashed throat, or a pierced heart. He thought about it for a very long time, and he finally found something resembling a solution. He won't feel the pain of loss if he never had anyone to lose. He wouldn't be affected by the limitations of humans if he was immortal. He could take all the knowledge of the world. Something that would take several lifetimes. And he could do it in one. Yes, that sounded perfect. With his genius mind set on it, he started to work on it. Different scenarios came to his mind as he progressed further in his research. He slowly started to distance himself from his team as he spent more and more time in his lab whenever he was not on the battlefield. His interest changed into his obsession as he frantically tried to find a solution. And then he finally came to a conclusion. His current body was not strong enough. He had no unique genes to speak of, no bloodline limits. His body was ordinary and weak. He underwent various enhancements, and while he was nowhere as ordinary when he was at the start, he could not do one major thing. One thing that would bring him even closer to his dreams, the only ninja arts that were known to give life, the wood release of the first Hokage. That was the answer to his problem. If he had the wood release, he could control the flow of life itself. With the first Hokage's sage mode and wood release in his grasp, he could theoretically take energy from nature and add it to his own. It was the perfect solution, but it wasn't an easy one. He acquired some of Hashirama cells and started to work on artificially replicating them. At first, his subjects were the shinobi or civilians that he managed to abduct from other countries during the war. All of them died, and he made no progress. This was around the time that he met Urahara Kayasuke, the head of the medic department of Konoha. He was a tall, lean man with pale blonde hair. Their interest in extending human lives brought them together, forming a mutually beneficial relationship. Kayasuke was no Tsunade, but he wasn't an amateur either. Soon, Orochimaru began experimenting on children. Most of them were orphans, kids who won't be missed by anyone. But he had the same problem here. All of them kept dying. If only he could find a child who had strong vitality, enough to not break when undergoing the intense bloodline transfer process. That was when Kayasuke came forth with an idea. One that would solve his problem. If you need a strong child, I have some information that might help your cause. Orochimaru looked at him curiously and raised a brow. Do tell. What is this information? Uzumaki Kushina will be giving birth this month. I do not know who the father is, but her Uzumaki genes should give this child enough strength to undergo your process. This information is on a need-to-know basis, and only I and 2 other nurses are aware of it at this point in the hospital. She has been under house arrest for some months now, so only her closest friends should be aware of this. Finally! This could be the thing he was looking for all this time. Yes, this could work. But he needed to play it safe. He needed a plan which would help him get the child without any unrequired attention. And he knows just what to use. An excited smile crept on his face, which looked quite disturbing. He started chuckling. Kayasuke-san, I think that we are finally going to make some progress. This is excellent news. 3 days later, Orochimaru gave him a vial containing some substance. When Kayasuke asked what it was, the only reply he got was, "This is a special poison that I want you to give her when she comes for her checkups. It will solely affect the child, which will be born very weak due to this. Kushina should be fine due to her special condition, and the child's genetics should keep him alive for a few hours. However, to everyone, it will seem as if the child is dead. But in reality, it should be in a state of stasis. What if the child dies from this? Well then, that would be a shame, won't it? If the subject dies from this poison, then they cannot survive my process either." Kushina would have burst from happiness if she could. Sure, she was angry when she found out she was pregnant. It wasn't planned at all, and Minato was being a sissy again. But that was nothing new, she supposed. Minato might be the most confident ninja on the battlefield, but he was quite an idiot when it came to dealing with other, non-shinobi things. She was scared that 20 was a young age to be a parent, but she came to accept the idea over the past few months. She couldn't wait to be a mother now. Minato fainted when she told him that he was going to be a father. She had a fun time teasing him about it. She grinned. She was going to smother her child with so much love that she might even spoil him. Of course, it was going to be a son. She was sure of her intuition. Her eyes watered with happiness as she daydreamed about her future family, but she sucked them in. Uzumaki Kushina was a strong woman. She doesn't cry. They have been thinking about a name and finally settled on one. She always giggled whenever she thought about his name, Menma. Their child was either going to love them for it, if he inherits her love for ramen, or hate them outright. But she knew her baby. He was going to be just like her. She caressed her stomach lovingly. Mom cannot wait to finally meet you, Menma. That was when it happened. Namikaze Minato was a happy man. It has been quite a few months since his girlfriend told him that she was carrying their child. Sure, he might have overreacted a little. Maybe a lot, but that wasn't his fault at all. He never imagined he would be becoming a father at the age of 20. The idea scared him. What if he's not a good father? What if the war stretches out for another decade, and he fails to come back on time to see his child and girlfriend? What if his child hates him for never being there? What if, Sensei, you're doing it again, a brown-haired girl said. You never tell us what it is about. It was a brash voice this time. Why would Sensei have to tell you anything, dumbass? Kakashi-kun, don't be rude to your teammate, Minato chastised lightly. Kakashi just looked away. He was assigned to be the Jonin Sensei of a Genin team this year. He was not really against the idea, but it was a new experience for him. His students were already growing on him. Hataki Kakashi, son of the White Fang of Konoha, Uchiha Obito, and Noara Rin, 3 9-year-old kids. How about some dango, my treat? He asked them. All right. Sensei is paying. Have some shame, you idiot. Why you dash? Suddenly Minato's eyes widened, and he disappeared in a yellow flash. My free dango, Obito spoke sullenly. Don't worry, Obito-kun. I'm sure Minato-sensei had something important to do. Kushina, Minato. Hurry, it should be any time now. Minato nodded shakily and teleported Kushina and himself to a hideout, quite far from the village. They had selected this place for Kushina because the process of childbirth for a Jinchuriki was different. He would have to actively suppress the seal binding the Kyuubi, or the results would be disastrous. It was a remote location in a cave. He gently lowered Kushina on a table of stone. I'll be back in a moment. Wait for me. He disappeared in a flash and returned with a disoriented woman, one of the 2 nurses assigned to her. What? Where am I? In one of my hideouts. Please, we need your help. The nurse looked at the scene and nodded. Her previous confusion forgotten as she got to work. Minato went over to his girlfriend and kissed her forehead before putting both his hands over the seal on her abdomen. She cried out loud as it began to hurt and gripped the table tightly, cursing incoherently. Minato resisted the urge to comfort her and focused on the seal. After an hour of shouting and threats to his life, Kushina finally gave birth to a boy. He was a small thing, and Minato and Kushina were already in love with their child. He had Kushina's beautiful red hair and her violet eyes, but his face was an even balance between both his parents. He had 3 whisker marks on both cheeks, probably due to her being the Jinchuriki of Kyubi. Menma, she spoke weakly, bring him to me. The nurse lowered the baby next to her and gave the new parents some space. Kushina brought him closer to her as she caressed his face, and tears welled up in her eyes. Ever since the destruction of her homeland, she had always wanted a family. Minato's presence helped her a lot, and now this child. Minato crouched next to her and looked with a smile on his face. He brought his fingers to Menma's face and touched his whiskers. The child responded by turning his head slightly towards him. He looked so delicate. Minato looked away, wiping his eyes with his sleeves. Minato, don't be such a wimp in front of Menma. He broke out in a sob, still covering his eyes with his sleeves. I'm a father. He had no words to describe the absolute joy he was feeling. This was his son. He didn't care if Kushina called him a sissy now. I'll need to check on the boy. It shouldn't take more than a few hours, the nurse spoke, feeling like she was interrupting something, but we need to go to the Konoha hospital. I can't run the tests here. Minato nodded quickly. He must have heard it wrong. There was no way this could be true. No way at all. Your son did not survive, Namikaze-san. In the next moment, Minato shoved the man forcefully towards the wall, gripping his neck tightly. Don't. His voice was eerily calm. Fuck with me, Kayasuke. His voice was sharp and carried a great threat. Kayasuke felt like he was staring into the Shinigami's mouth as he looked into those cold blue eyes. He was sure there was a wet spot on his pants. He was almost tempted to ditch the plan, but he will not fail now. Not when they were so close to their goal. Nami, he broke in a cough, and Minato dropped him on the floor. Namikaze-san, he spoke while still massaging his throat, I understand your anguish. However, please accept the fact that your child is dead. We could do nothing. He was born very weak. There was no way he would have survived longer than he did. That was a lie, of course, but they didn't need to know that. Hiruzen and Mikoto were present as well. Jiraiya would have been here if he wasn't out on the battlefield. Only a few people knew this, but Hiruzen was grooming Minato to be the next Hokage when he inevitably retires. They had become good friends over the last year, and Minato wanted Hiruzen to be present to meet Menma, but that seemed impossible now. Meanwhile, Mikoto was helping an unmoving Kushina as she sat on the bench, her eyes unfocused. Kushina's eyes that were once filled with so much life were now filled with an unending sadness as she mourned the loss of her son Menma. Minato punched the wall and leaned his forehead against it. If there was some way that he could give up his life in exchange for his son's, he would do it in a heartbeat. Angry tears escaped his eyes. Hiruzen looked at the unmoving child on the bed. His hair red like Kushina, with unique whisker marks on his cheeks. He placed a hand on Minato's shoulder and shook his head. I will not tell you to calm down, or that time will heal all wounds. He took a deep breath, because it will not. You will just have to learn to live with it, my friend. Minato didn't say anything or look up. He knew it wasn't his fault that his son died. He knew it. But as he watched Kushina in a state like that, the only thing he could wonder was he a failure as a father? Orochimaru watched from afar as they buried the supposed dead child. There were not many people present. Only Kushina, Minato, Hiruzen, his wife and Mikoto. He mused if he should be feeling some guilt for doing this since this was the first time he will be taking a child away from its parents. All of the other kids he took were orphans, so no one would be there to miss them. But he decided it doesn't matter what he felt in the end. The answer for immortality was not much far beyond now. He waited for hours as everyone went back to their homes. Everyone but Minato and Kushina. They kept looking for a while, Minato with his arm over Kushina's shoulder. After an hour, they two walked out, supporting each other. Orochimaru retrieved the child and gave him the antidote, which put him out of his death-like state. Within a few days, the child was already at the top of his health. This was the 17th child that he would be performing his experiment on, and all but one of them died. Number 4 was alive, but his wood affinity was but a small glimpse of what 17's potential was. Orochimaru experimented with the child's DNA, infused him with the cells of first Hokage, but he was puzzled to see that it did not add anything new to his DNA. It felt almost like strengthening the already existing properties rather than add new ones. He came to a startling realization. This child already had the wood release. But this was only possible if he was part Senju. Further examination proved that he was Tobirama's descendant, his great-grandson to be precise. The only thing that his experiments achieved to do is strengthen his dormant Senju blood, which was diluted with Minato not being a pure-blooded Senju. His red hair, which was an Uzumaki trait, was replaced when his hair started to change color. It was subtle at first, but with time, his hair lost its red color and looked more and more like Minato's blonde hair. His whisker marks, which were due to being him subjected to the Kyuubi's chakra, started fading when his Senju blood purified it, further adding it to his chakra reserves. Orochimaru was most pleased. Finally! Now all he had to do was to wait and let the child get stronger on his own. Meanwhile, he will be developing his other jutsu, which will allow him to change bodies. All was set. By now, Orochimaru had already accepted that he was going to be an immortal. He will live longer than anyone alive right now, and he will be a god amongst men. There would be nothing that would be out of his reach. It was just too bad that he forgot just why he started on this journey of his. Over time, Orochimaru's mind became deranged as he began to see himself as more of a god than a human. So, naturally, he felt betrayed when his own sensei rejected him for the position of the Hokage in favor of Minato. While he was holed up inside his laboratory, Namake's Minato fought in the war like a man possessed, channeling his anger into killing his enemies. His legends were told all around the world. He became the only man to ever have a fleon sight order to his name. Eye of Kumogakure was a confident man. Some might say he was overconfident, but he believed he had every right to be overconfident with his combo of speed and power. I was prideful. So, naturally, he had to show the Namakes just who the real boss was. After getting thoroughly beaten by a stone-faced Minato, he had to accept, grudgingly, of course, that Minato was the boss. He was on his knees by the time Minato was done with him. His pride demolished. "Ho W! How are you so strong?" I asked weakly, still not standing. Minato threw one of his kunai at him, and he thought that was it for him. He closed his eyes and waited for death to take him. But all he felt was a slight twinge of pain on his right cheek. He looked up to notice Minato looking at him disinterestedly. "You fight like an animal, Run. Run away, and don't show me your face again on the battlefield." His voice was dull, but his eyes had an unearthly glow in them. "Or I won't be so merciful the next time." I didn't need to be told twice. He ran away but swore vengeance on Namakes. Orochimaru started being less and less discreet with his experiments. He kept trying to artificially give them bloodlines since more goons were always helpful, but none were successful. In time, Hiruzen realized that his pupil has gone down a dark path, and there was no turning him back now. The lonely child that he took care of, the innocent child who watched in terror as his parents got murdered in front of him, was no more. There was a snake in his place now. When Orochimaru realized that his old sensei would be storming down into his laboratory any day now, and he would have to flee, he gave Kyosuke some instructions. "I will not take the child with me. I will use the village to do my work. They will surely notice his endless potential, and I will take over his body when the time comes, coming even closer to eternal life." He smirked. "All you have to do is to keep any unnecessary attention off of him. You know what to do." For 6 years he stayed in hiding. Only then did he start making his move, attracting attention from a particular organization. Hiruzen was having a good day. He had finished all of his work, and now, he was free to do whatever he wanted. Hiruzen looked around with a severe expression and dismissed his ANBU. He carefully opened his drawer and took out a book. He looked at it with a strange expression before a perverted smile came over its place. No matter how much of a pervert his student was, or precisely because he was a pervert, his books were always fascinating to read. The quality of the material was off the charts. Indeed, it was a book for real men. He giggled a bit. Suddenly his office door was opened, and he hid his book under the table in a flash. He was surprised to see that it was his old friend and rival, Danzo. "Danzo? What brings you here?" Danzo looked at the weird position his rival was in. Cheeks still slightly red, his nose had a bit of blood, and his right hand was in a strange position under the table, like he was hiding something. Danzo would have subtly teased him if not for his current mood. Orochimaru had left a while ago, issuing further blackmail threats if he told anyone about Naruto's heritage. Of course, he tried to kill the snake before he disappeared. But all he hit was a mud clone, and the room rocked with mocking laughter. I looked into the boy's reports. It doesn't seem like his parents were anyone of worth. Probably some of the more powerful shinobi that were lost in the Third War. Silence reigned for a moment. Hiruzen stared at Danzo with something akin to suspicion. "I would not advise further tests. His lineage matters little, after all. All the shinobi of Konoha are her tools and weapons. It doesn't matter where they come from." Very well. It was only a matter of curiosity anyway. He filed it away for later and ignored the latter part of his statement. He knew by now that they will always have a difference in opinion. But he also knew that Danzo wasn't wholly wrong. They were just the two opposite sides of a coin. They looked into each other's eyes before Danzo turned around and walked to the door. He put his hand on the door, but before he could open it, Hiruzen spoke out. "I hope that you have trained him well. The Raikage will try his absolute to make them fail. You don't have to worry about it. Even without using his bloodline, he is a capable shinobi." Danzo left, and Hiruzen was left to his devices. "Nei-san, look." Sasuke pointed his finger. "It's your idiot friend." Izumi looked in the direction that her brother was pointing to and came across a strange sight if she were to be honest. Naruto, playing with a child? Izumi was walking back to her home, with Sasuke riding piggyback. They just came back from hunting a wild boar, and Sasuke had sprained his ankle. Izumi suspected that it was just an excuse to not walk on their way back home, but she didn't mind. She made her way towards him and saw him stiffen as soon as he noticed her approaching. He stopped swinging Natsumi, and she jumped off of the swing as soon as she could, feeling dizzy. She stopped in front of him. Onyx-colored eyes stared into violet ones. Naruto, Izumi, it has been long. Not long enough. Sasuke pulled his eyelids and stuck out his tongue at him. Sadly, he was ignored. It has been a while, she nodded. I've been training. I hope you do not fall behind too much. It would be boring if my rival stops being a challenge. Her eyes flashed red for a second, and Naruto's own eyes widened. Amazing she mastered it. There were 3 tomo in her eyes, compared to 2 that he last saw. His expression changed from shock to an excited smirk. Don't worry about me. You will be surprised with what I can do now. We will see. She mirrored his smirk. So, kidnapping little girls now, are we? Naruto deadpanned. This is my new neighbor, Natsumi. Izumi looked mildly shocked that a girl of around Sasuke's age would live alone. Nei-san, let's go. Sasuke whined. Izumi turned around and started to walk away. She didn't look back when she spoke. It was good to see you. But Sasuke did turn back, still sitting on her back, when he stuck out his tongue again. No, it wasn't. Natsumi, who was silent this whole time, saw the duo leave. Her eyes filled with longing and slight jealousy. Naruto didn't know why, but felt a twinge of pain when he saw her like this. He sighed. Hop on. He was crouching in front of her, looking away as he scratched his cheek. Her eyes widened. You wanted to do this, right? She didn't wait any longer and slowly put her arms around his neck. Almost as if all of this would be some cruel joke, Naruto stood up, carrying her on his back. His arms supporting her legs under her knees. The sky had a reddish hue as the sun set. He walked out of the park, listening to the song of insects and the barely audible chatter of children. He noticed when she hid her face in the back of his neck. He certainly didn't imagine it when he felt drops rolling down his neck. Try not to get your snot on my clothes. Shut up. Her smile contradicted her words. Naruto would be lying if he said he wasn't feeling a little nervous. It was finally the day that they leave for the Chunin exams to the village of Kumogakure. He leaned against the village's main gate, with no one else in sight, clad in his usual attire, a white jacket and an orange undershirt with black pants. The only new thing in his attire was a tanto strapped on his back in a sheath. The morning dew trickled against his skin, and the skies were still dark. He might have been a little early, now that he thought about it. Okay, maybe he was too early. The only other people he could see were the gate guards, and they, too, were asleep. He contemplated waking the 2 of them up but then decided against it. He didn't think that they would be too pleased if he woke them up. He closed his eyes as he leaned his back against the gate and prepared to wait for a few hours. Izumi fiddled with her things as she stored them neatly in her backpack. She had been training for the past few months with her father, who took it upon himself to help his prodigious daughter master her Sharingan. A frown came over her face when her thoughts wandered to her father. Lately, he has been much more distant and stern. Her mother told her that it was nothing, that her father was always like this. But she didn't believe that her mother was telling the truth about everything being okay. She could practically feel the tension within the clan. The Uchiha had completely isolated themselves from the village in the past few years. Or rather, they were forced to relocate. The ever-growing feeling of unrest and the tense atmosphere made her uneasy. Her father had been giving more of his attention to Sasuke lately. He was obviously happy because of this development. That boy was so eager to please his father, to get some sort of appreciative gesture from him. Nei-sen, she looked up from her bag to see Sasuke looking at her excitedly. Will you see me practice shuriken today? Izumi's face softened, and a small smile came over her face. She gestured her brother to come near. Sasuke smiled widely, making his way over to his sister. His sister was finally. Sasuke covered his forehead with his hands, right where she poked him, and pouted. Izumi smiled apologetically. Forgive me, Sasuke. Maybe when I come back? Sasuke didn't stop pouting and crossed his hands, looking away from her. Izumi sighed, whom she made a show of thinking by putting her finger on her chin. I've heard that tomatoes from the land of lightning are very delicious. Who knows, maybe I will bring some back with me. Sasuke was elated in a second, already thinking about all the delicious tomatoes that he would get to eat. He nodded and smiled at her. Izumi noticed her mother and father making their way to her. She stood up and bowed. Father, mother, I will be leaving now. Mikoto smiled at her, and Fugaka had a frown on his face, although it was not harsh. You will be a Chunin by the time you come back, I'm sure of it. After all, you are my daughter. Take care, Izumi-chan. She nodded and made her way out of the house. Her father and mother were sometimes so different that it makes her wonder how did they get married in the first place. She made her way through the Uchiha compound, greeting people with a nod as she went. On her way to the gates, she met someone she was not expecting. Senpai? Yo! Shursui waved his hand, a grin on his face. I came to see off my 2 underlings. Let's go then. She looked up to see the sun rising. Knowing him, he's already waiting for me. In a dimly lit room, 2 figures could be made out. One was kneeling on the ground, while the other stood in front. A tap echoed across the room. Kino, do not forget the objective. Failure is not an option. Kino lifted his head. Yes, Danzo-sama. Naruto. Naruto opened his eyes to see Izumi and Shursui standing in front of him. Izumi was wearing her high-collar blue Uchiha shirt and black shorts. You took long enough. I've been standing here for hours. Where is the rest of our team? She completely ignored his statement. Shursui waved his hand in greeting and made his way over to him, leaning his back against the gate beside Naruto. I know who our third team member is, but I have no idea about our squad leader. Naruto tilted his head to the side, just in time for someone to appear before them. A boy older than them, having brown hair and wearing a Hapuri-style head protector. He wore a navy blue shirt and had a sword strapped to his back. The newcomer bowed in greeting. I'm Kino, a temporary member of Team 2. I hope we get along. Uchiha Izumi nodded politely. Shursui pushed himself off the gate and started to walk away. I would have wished you luck, but I don't think you will need it. He smiled at them. Let's meet when the two of you are chunin. With that, he was gone in a shunshin. The three of them stood in awkward silence, still waiting for their fourth member. They stood for minutes, then hours. The streets of Konoha were filled with people now. Street vendors and shop owners could be seen haggling with their customers. The sun was now directly above them. Did Hokage-sama forget about us? He said he was going to send one of his jonin. Naruto pushed himself off the gate and made his way to Izumi. Just as he said that, they noticed a white-haired, masked young man reading a book and walking by them. When they kept staring at him, he stopped walking but didn't look up from his book. What are you waiting for? Aren't you guys getting late? Naruto looked at the man in shock. That's Kakashi of the Sharingan. No one moved as they kept staring at the man, who acted like he didn't just make them wait for 3 hours. Well, he ran his hand through his spiky hair, his other hand still holding the book. If you guys aren't going to move, perhaps I can go and do something else. I never liked babysitting anyway. All three of them stiffened at the comment, and slowly made their way to the man. Kakashi smiled. See, it wasn't too hard now, was it? The only response he got was 3 glares, each of varying intensities. He acts like we are the ones who were late. The road to Kumo was a long one, but since all of them were shinobi and had experience in traveling, they did not need too many breaks. They traveled in silence, with no one really talking. Kakashi didn't look too enthused by what he called babysitting, but it was difficult to make out his expressions due to his face mask. They covered the distance of Fire Country quickly, hopping on trees. We are entering the land of lightning. Do not do anything that would get you in trouble, Kakashi told them in a dull voice. A chorus of yes was heard. They made the rest of their way on land. The land of lightning was very different when compared to land of fire. Whereas the Fire Country had a variety of trees and a warm climate, the lightning, on the other hand, had tall mountain ranges. They arrived in the village of Kumo the night before the registration for the first part of the exams. The gate guards stared at them with a small amount of hostility, but they were let in after Kakashi showed their papers. It was not a secret that Kumo and Konoha were in a strained relationship. The recent peace treaty between the two villages did not carry much weight when the only one benefiting from it was Konoha. Have a good stay. And don't snoop around too much, the guard said pointedly. We will take care of that, won't we now? Kakashi gave the 3 of them a subtle glance. As long as you get it, this isn't your Konoha. You are in the village of Kumogakure. The 4 of them booked 2 rooms in an inn. Kakashi hoarded 1 room for himself and let the 3 of them stay in a single room, saying how brats do not need a separate room for themselves. Kakashi and Kino went their separate ways. And Naruto convinced Izumi to look around the village with him for a bit. It was their first time in one of the 5 main villages that was not Konoha, so he was a little excited to look around. They walked side by side on the streets, taking in everything. Even the housing buildings were different from what they had in Konoha. In Konoha, the houses were built on level ground, while in Kumo, they were built on the tall mountains that could be found everywhere, with clouds often obscuring the view. It was taking the term hidden in the clouds literally. There are much more shinobi on the streets as compared to the civilians, Naruto said in a quiet voice. What would you expect? Kumo never followed the peace treaty after the wars to stop militarizing. It gives them a bad reputation, but the Reikage doesn't seem to care. You seem to know a lot. My father makes sure that I know about these things. There was a comfortable silence between them as they walked on the streets of Kumo. Most of the Kumo shinobi gave them a stink eye or outright avoided them. It was to be expected, he mused. Looks like there is some kind of festival today. Naruto looked around. There was a line of shops, each of them lit with fancy lights and lanterns. The silver moonlight was distorted by the presence of clouds, clashing with the warm yellow of lanterns. Izumi stopped all of a sudden, looking pointedly inside a shop. Naruto followed her gaze and noticed a necklace. He saw that it was a simple necklace, having 3 metal rings held together by pieces of thread. First prize for any young man who swims across the ice-cold river. Is there anyone brave enough? First prize. Who would be so foolish? Izumi muttered and turned on her heels. Let's go back. The registration should be early in the morning. She started to walk in the direction of their inn. When she noticed she was walking alone, she looked over her shoulder and raised an eyebrow. Naruto looked away from her eyes and scratched his cheek. You may go. I will look around for a bit more. He gave her a nervous smile. Izumi shrugged but didn't question more. Fine, but come back before midnight. You can count on it. He gave her a thumbs up and a grin, getting a small smile in return. There was a tense silence in the Raikage's office. The fourth Raikage, was sitting on his chair, his arms folded as he looked in front of him. He was a muscular, dark-skinned, tall man with light blonde hair. Adorning his massive frame was an open white haori, which didn't do much in covering his chest. His voice was gruff and stern as he spoke. Konoha will send her best genin squad, no doubt about that. The wretched Leaf dared to humiliate us in our last mission, so it is crucial for us to win now. I will not accept any failures. He slammed his hand on his table, cracking it. There were 5 people present in the room, excluding Darui. A white-haired teen stepped in front. You, Samui, and C will be part of one team. I expect you to pass the first 2 stages with minimal resistance. Understood, Raikage-sama. I shifted his gaze to a blonde-haired girl and grunted. Yujito, the girl stepped forward. You will be in a team with 2 other genin. Your job is to carry them throughout the second exam. And, his voice got dangerously low, it would be preferable if you get rid of the Konoha genin before the final stage. Yujito's face became blank, her eyes cold. Samui sent her fellow blonde a sympathetic look. She knew Yujito refrained from killing, as long as she could help it. She nodded and spoke in a monotonous voice. Understood, Raikage-sama. The last member was looking at the scene with his hands crossed, leaning on the wall. He suddenly leaped up in front of the Raikage. Yo bro! Why so low? Just let him go with the flow, yeah. Shut up, B. I smashed his table in half. We will show the world that Kumo is not filled with cowards. Whatever bro, just don't piss and moan when it comes back to bite yo in the zone. Oh yeah, Iron Claw. He was sent crashing through the wall the next moment. Naruto opened the door to their shared room and silently made his way inside. It was a few minutes till midnight, so he was clear on that front. He was not surprised to see Izumi sleeping on one of the beds, her mouth half open. He smiled a bit. Why are you wet? Naruto jumped, but he was proud to admit that he did not shriek when he saw something terrifying. Tenzo's face was lit in the darkness with a candle as he stared at him. Naruto put his right hand over his heart as he took deep breaths. He was still afraid of ghosts. What? He tilted his head, his big brown eyes shining. Never seen a handsome guy before? Naruto deadpanned at him, pinching the wick of the candle and extinguishing it. I don't swing that way. He went to the washroom, quickly changing his clothes, and then laid down on his bed. It is kind of obvious that you don't, with how much you in is. Let me sleep, Tenzo. It's Kino. Kinoi. Why can you not understand? Your Danzo-sama would be very disappointed with your excessively emotional behavior if he found out. Tenzo went quiet on hearing this, and he moved in his bed. Ever since Danzo took him, it was ingrained into his mind that a good shinobi never shows any emotions. It was somewhat true, but he was never able to follow it fully. Let's do our best tomorrow. Tenzo made a sound of confirmation but didn't speak again. The 3 of them got up early the following day, meeting up with their leader, who was fortunately on time today. Kakashi just gave them a dull thumbs up and a do your best before going on his merry way. The registrations would be starting in a few hours, but they wanted to get it done with. However, they ran into a problem. Haven't we crossed this path before? Naruto spoke. We might have been walking into circles for the last 10 minutes, Izumi replied uncaringly. But this is what the address pointed to. We should be there by now, Tenzo said. All of them stopped walking and concentrated on their surroundings. The area was definitely the same. There was no doubt about it. It can't be possible unless… Sharingan. Izumi activated her Sharingan, and the surroundings started to disintegrate in her vision, changing into something different. So, a genjutsu. Follow me, both of you. Naruto and Tenzo shared a look as she started to walk towards a wall. Surprisingly, she didn't hit her forehead, as Naruto suspected. She just walked through it. A genjutsu? But the exam hasn't even started yet, Naruto said as both the boys followed her into the wall. The other side of the wall was a room, with plenty of Chunin exam participants already present. As soon as they entered, they were subjected to the combined attention of everyone present. It wasn't necessarily a nice feeling, considering the hostility oozing from their very being, especially the team from IWA. Standing in the opposite corner with her team, Yujito crossed her arms and analyzed the newcomers, the sign on their hatayate. Konoha, but they are just brats. Are they mocking us? A scowl appeared on her face as she met the gaze of the raven-haired girl. She was probably around 10 years old, the youngest on her team. But she walked with the confidence of a grown woman. She held her gaze for a while before looking away, clicking her tongue. Great, I'll have to murder children now, tch. Izumi kept looking in her direction with her brow raised before shrugging and turning to her teammates. I don't think that blonde girl likes me at all. What gave it away? The not-so-subtle killing intent that she's directing at us. Naruto remarked. I miss the times when you didn't know what sarcasm was. I was naive, but I have to thank you for that. After all, I picked it up from you. Oh my, I feel so honored. She spoke with grace. See, can you two stop your lover's quarrel? It is attracting attention, Tenzo interrupted. I do not like him her at all. They spoke simultaneously, a slight blush on their faces. Could have fooled me, Tenzo said dryly. You're a very foolish person. It's not very hard to fool you, Naruto snuck the last comment. Suddenly, there was a loud sound, and a stage appeared out of smoke. It had obnoxious flickering lights and giant speakers. A large man jumped on the stage, and there was a collective sound of groaning and facepalming from the Kumo teams. The man flipped a mic in his hand and started to rap terribly. He was a muscular, dark-skinned man with blonde hair, wearing oval-shaped glasses. Fool, you fool! It is me, Lord Killer Bee. Your proctor for rounds 1 to 3. He made a sign with his hand, raising it up. There was a silence as everyone stopped to process his words. Is this guy for real? Izumi deadpanned. I can do bet. Naruto started. Izumi pulled his ear, prompting him to stop. I have no doubt you can. However, I will fry you with my slowest fire jutsu if you even try it. Her tone was monotonous as she stared at him with dull eyes. Okay. Okay. Let my ear go now. Naruto stared at her strangely as he massaged his throbbing ear. Sheesh, you used to be so sweet. What happened to you? Izumi looked at him with a questioning stare. Do you really not know? Naruto understood that look and promptly shut up. Killer Bee started to speak again, making gestures with his hands as he went. Let's start round 1, without any trap. But before that, hear my rap. Iron Claw. The audience gaped as they saw the large rapper sent crashing through a wall by the Raikage himself. Bee, you fool. Get to the point. I shouted. A muffled voice was sound as Bee made his way out of the debris. Sorry, bro got carried away, yo. Shut up, Bee. I turned towards the potential Chunin candidates. My idiot brother aside, congrats on making your way here. Those who were the lowest of the trash were weeded out by the Genjutsu. But the real exam begins now. There was a loud cheer as the Raikage announced. Kumo is known for its strength and power, which is the greatest out of the 5 nations. He started smugly. The first round will test your strength of will. One of your team members will be sent to another team as a prisoner. They will be given a password, and their limbs will be bound. The 2 people left will interrogate the prisoner and obtain the password. Your team should have both the passwords with you for you to pass this round. Use any means necessary, as long as the effects aren't permanent. He spoke harshly. There was a tense silence as the candidates digested this information. It was going to be a tough first round for sure. They were taken to a large room consisting of a significant amount of Kumo shinobi. All of them had a black box in their hands as they stood in a line. The box has 3 slips. The 2 of them are similar, while the third one is different. Whosoever picks the odd slip has to be the prisoner. Get on with it. I shouted. He was a fool for believing that his brother could proctor the exams. It was probably for the best to banish him from the stage altogether. I saw the Konoha genin and rose a brow. What is that old monkey playing at? The 3 of them are just brats. This is an insult. He gritted his teeth. Soon, each team picked their slips. Naruto, Izumi, and Tenzo looked at theirs. Is it alright for her to be the prisoner? She is the youngest of us aft. Naruto covered Tenzo's mouth with his hands as he looked at Izumi, who was staring at Tenzo with a subtly hostile gaze. She looked at Naruto and nodded confidently. Let's get this over with. You can count on us. He gave her a thumbs up, still not letting go of Tenzo. He watched as Izumi made her way to get her password from a Kumo Jonin and then let go of Tenzo, who looked at him with betrayal. What was that for? She's even younger than you. What if they do something? She's more than capable of handling any genin. Have some faith. You don't have to worry about her. He didn't look convinced but nodded reluctantly. Izumi took her password and allowed them to take her to a room, where she was bounded to a wooden chair. She was left alone as she looked around the room. It was small, with white walls and no windows. There was a steel door that looked reasonably old, and a small table in front of her. The ceiling was bland, just like the walls. Overall, it looked like a proper interrogation chamber. She looked up when she heard the door click open. 2 people came into view as she studied them. 2 boys, probably around their late teens. One of them had curly brown hair and was quite tall. The other had straight black hair and was slightly on the shorter side. Their Hittite had the sign of Kusa. The 2 of them noticed the bound girl, looking at them with an apathetic gaze before they shared a look and burst into laughter. It's a little girl. The brown-haired teen spoke between guffaws. It took them a while to calm down, but they couldn't see the almost invisible nerve throbbing on her forehead. She didn't like to be underestimated. This will be almost too easy, eh? The black-haired teen spoke after calming down. Yeah. Even if she is quite young, I can see that she will be a beauty when she grows up. Izumi closed her eyes. They took it as a sign that she was scared. True. Although, he leaned closer, a sickly smile on his face. I wouldn't mind taking a peek. What do you say? Both of them shared a grin before they looked at the girl as she started speaking. Yushi slowly opened her eyes, and the world stopped for the 2 genin. Disgust me. Red eyes stared into their very soul, projecting horrifying visuals deep into their psyche. Wait. Stop. We weren't gonna do anything. Their horrible screams echoed across the corridors. Tenzo, my name is Kino. So Tenzo/Kino contemplated on murder, but Danzo-sama would not like that. Do you know any other interrogation techniques? I don't think my tickle attack is working in our favor. They have been trying to get their prisoner to give up her password. A kunoichi from Amigekure, probably in her late teens. She had tears in her eyes from laughing so much. Naruto wasn't familiar with any interrogation tactics, so all he could do was tickle her into submission. But that wasn't working very well. Ha! Is that all you got, you brats? Grow some balls and start the real torture already. She tempted them, but inwardly she was very relieved. She got some inexperienced kids, who probably didn't even make their first kill yet. She grinned. It looks like Konoha weren't as big as they once were. I have one, but it is very dangerous. He spoke lowly. It can have serious consequences if not executed properly. Naruto gulped. Whatever it was, Tenzo made it sound like a horrifying technique. He didn't want to be a part of it. Well, it seems like this is our only hope. He nodded somberly. Do what you have to. With that, he gave a shoulder pat to Tenzo, and moved out of the room. The kunoichi was scared now. She was only tempting them because she was sure that they wouldn't go past tickling. But now, wait, what are you doing? She looked around frantically. Don't tell me you're after my beautiful body. There was a silence as Tenzo stared at her with half-lidded eyes. He put his hand inside of his hip pouch. You overestimate yourself. His voice was grave. Suddenly, the lights in the room went off, and she panicked. There was a sound of thunder. Tenzo pulled out something from his pouch. It was a torch. He lit it up under his face and looked at her with big, unblinking brown eyes. Tell me what I want to know. Her screams were drowned in the thunder. What did you do to her? The girl was sprawled on the chair, unconscious and frothing from her mouth. He was curious about the kind of technique that could do this. Who knew Tenzo had such a diverse arsenal of techniques? The less you know, the better. I think I believe you. The time limit was finally over, and all the team members were united. The pool of candidates was shrunk to less than a quarter of its previous size. Tenzo noticed Izumi making her way towards them and sighed in relief. She made it. He shook his head. I was afraid she was going to give up since she's the you now. What was that for? Tenzo massaged his right foot, which was stomped on by Naruto. I told you not to speak about her like that if you don't want to be the subject of her ire, he whispered. She's very stubborn with stuff like that. You know an awful lot about her. He spoke with squinted eyes, his foot forgotten for now. Are you sure you two are only friends? Not ouch. What now? I slipped. Izumi acted like she didn't just stomp on his other foot. Tenzo looked at her strangely. You don't stomp on someone's foot when you slip, he mumbled bitterly but was ignored by the two. There was a loud sound and a cloud of smoke. A familiar stage came into view from within the smoke, and an outline of a person could be made. There was a collective sound of groaning and face-palming all around the room this time. Killer B the Great is back. Had to eat some snack, yeah. He started making gestures with his hands. Congrats on passing the round first, but now get serious, or you'll be left in the dust. Izumi ignored the drama and looked at Naruto. She had noticed something earlier but didn't get the chance to ask him. He had something strapped on his back. When did you learn to use a tanto? Naruto touched the sheath as he spoke. I have been training with Shursui-senpai and one of the elders. Shursui uses a tanto as well, so I asked him if I could get some help with it. He grinned. He helped me in making my own techniques with it. Shursui, I can understand. But an elder? She raised a brow and trailed off expectantly. He scratched the back of his head, Shimura Danzo. He's helping me with my specialty. Izumi looked at him intensely for a moment before turning her head in front. Whatever you do, do not trust that man. She shook her head. If my father finds out that you are meeting with him, he won't be too happy. Naruto spoke nervously. You won't tell him, right? It was supposed to be a secret, but I thought you should know. I don't like him much either. You thought well. She didn't answer his question. They were interrupted when the Reikage made his entrance again. Iron Claw. You fool. I banished you from the exams. Who let you in? I came for my own curiosity, but I was allowed in by the security. B picked himself up from the rubble of the wall that he just crashed into. I grunted and looked at the audience. Good work in the first round, but the exams have just begun. Do not celebrate just yet. There was a loud cheer from the Kumo teams as they hiked their Reikage up. I grunted in approval. For the next round, you will have to climb to the top of the Hill of Chill, the tallest mountain in Kumo, having deadly snowstorms all around the year. It is very likely that some of you may die, so we will have you sign these waivers, according to which your villages cannot blame us when any of you die. He showed a bundle of papers in his hands. The rest of the rules will be shared just before the exam starts. Get on with it. Naruto, Tenzo, and Izumi looked at each other and nodded determinedly. Let's do this. The hill was not as steep as some may have imagined it to be. It was, however, just as dangerous as they feared. Perhaps even more. The remaining teams stood at the base, each member signing their consent forms. The rules were already announced for the second round. All the teams will be given a flag of the color red or blue. The teams that manage to climb to the hill's summit carrying both the flags within the one-day time limit will be allowed to move to the final rounds. Since they did not have any warm clothes, the three of them chose to wear their traveling cloaks and pack their bento lunch boxes. I just hope we don't end up freezing to death, Naruto mumbled to no one. Oh no, Izumi replied blandly. Do you require my cloak as well? Come on, I was just saying. Izumi raised her brow, and an amused smile crept to her face. And you thought I was being serious? Naruto deadpanned. She was trying so hard to get under his skin, and the thing he was most irritated about was that it was working. Let's focus on the literally freezing hill that we have to somehow climb under a day's time. Your petty arguments can wait, Tenzo interrupted them. Who made you the captain? Since I'm clearly the most mature and responsible member of the team, I elected myself. Whatever, Izumi said, it doesn't matter as long as we pass this one. I guess, Naruto grumbled. A blonde-haired girl was watching the two of them bicker with cold, blue eyes. She sincerely doubted the three of them were going to come out of this alive, but she had little pity for them. She was more worried about her friend Yujito, who would be the one to kill them. Man, a lazy voice sounded. This might be dull, but leave the Konoha team to Yujito. There's no way she's going to lose to 3 kids. Cool. She massaged her shoulder as she spoke in a monotonous voice. Darui's right, their third teammate, a blonde-haired boy said, just focus on getting the other flag. This one should be easy for us since we've already used this place for training. Darui leaned against a tree and watched with half-lidded eyes but did not speak again. They snapped to attention on hearing the siren and the announcement, and went to their assigned gate. Round 2 starts now. Scared ones can still bow. Once the round begins, you can't chicken fools. Suffice to say, no one chicken out. Tenzo looked at his teammates and said, I'll take point. Both of them nodded, not seeing any fault in letting him. Let's go. Natsumi strolled down the street with a skip in her step, taking in the sights of the bustling marketplace. It wasn't often that she left her apartment alone, but considering that Naruto wasn't in the village anymore, it was the only thing she could do if she had to buy something. It has been a few days since he left, but she didn't know what for. She has only known him for a few months, and all he did was train, almost as if he was preparing for something. Oftentimes she would knock on his door, but found it to be empty. Natsumi puffed her cheeks. She didn't like how he didn't tell her about it before he left. She found a note on his door saying he would be out of the village for a month or so. It hurt her somewhat that her only friend would not tell her personally. Her life had taken a turn for the better in the past few months. No annoying bullies, no dumb orphanage ladies, she even got people who are friendly to her. She grinned toothily. It felt nice, she decided, to not be looked on as a pest or an annoyance. Old Man Hokage was super cool in her books. He was strong, kind, and respected by everyone. He even told her that she could become Hokage if she works hard instead of outright denying her. She has been visiting the old man in his office since the day they met. It wasn't challenging, especially when the Hokage tower was so close to her apartment. He even treated her to ramen a couple of times. She patted her tummy in fond remembrance. Ichiraku ramen was something of a second home to her now. Old man Tucci even gave her special discounts, partly because she eats an absurd amount of ramen. Tasty, tasty miso ramen? Her stomach made a noise. She looked disappointedly at her tummy. Ah man, now I'm hungry. She abruptly turned around, eyes intensely scanning the corner of the street. She could have sworn she felt that someone was following her. However, when she didn't notice anything amiss, she shrugged and resumed her walk, chalking it up to her imagination. 2 people sighed in relief. My lady, this feels awfully like stalking, a childish voice said with noticeable hesitance. This is unbecoming of a lady of your stature. Not at all, another voice said pleasantly. This is just a careful observation. Or are you questioning my judgment? The voice was colder this time. And no, not at all, the first voice spluttered, my apologies. Natsumi felt the coins in her toad-faced wallet. Gamachan, something she found lying on her table a month ago. Not suspicious at all. She had enough money to last this month, and then some. The stipend kept her from starving. She quickened her pace and rushed to the grocery store, a small shop near her apartment, ignoring the people that were now giving her a wide berth and eyeing her cautiously. Natsumi opened the door and peeked in. Not finding the owner of the shop, she made her way inside. Humming, she skimmed over the vegetables and fruits. She would eat ramen 3 times a day if it were up to her, but after a rather unfortunate scolding from Naruto, she had to agree reluctantly to eat her vegetables. She was going to become the next Hokage, after all, as soon as the old man retires. And a Hokage shouldn't just eat ramen. There was a rustle and the sound of opening a door. She looked back just in time to almost get a broom shoved into her face. She fell on her backside. You little thief! A rough voice shouted. I knew I should have never let you in. Shoo! Shoo! Her heart hammered in her chest as she saw the man walking up to her, holding his broom like a sword, probably to chase her away. She stood up hurriedly and scrambled to the door to get as far as possible. However, the doors slammed open before she could make it, showing the silhouettes of 2 people. She couldn't make out their faces as she had to cover her eyes from the sun's glare, but the 2 were probably around her age from what she could make of their height. The man went pale on seeing the 2, dropping his broom with a rattle. 2 pairs of cold white eyes pierced him with an apathetic gaze. Natsumi watched in surprise as the man who was about to chase her out bowed as low as he could. Such a stark contrast from how he was acting just a moment ago. Who are these guys? The 2 walked in, and she saw them clearly. A girl with dark blue hair, around her age, and an older boy with black hair strode confidently towards the man, their whole aura screaming nobles. The boy walked behind the girl, his hands folded in his sleeves. They stopped right in front of the still bowing man. She stared at his frame for a while before finally speaking. Such a shameless man, she shook her head disappointedly. Do you perhaps feel more powerful now? More manly? Picking on a little girl? The man clenched his hands. Oh no, she covered her cheeks in mock terror. I, too, am a helpless little girl. Whatever could happen to me in this vile man's presence? You would protect me from this brute, Niji Nizan, won't you? Or perhaps I should run away now, crying to my father. She sighed in mock disappointment. He certainly would not be happy. It would be a shame if something were to happen to this little shop as you slept peacefully in the night, won't it? The man was sweating profusely by now, his knees shaking as he squinted his eyes shut, keeping his head down. Hiya Hyuga-sama, he let out shakily. Please, this shop is all I have. My wife and kids will starve if something were to happen. He touched his forehead to the ground, almost sobbing. I beg your forgiveness. Hinata arched an eyebrow and tilted her head. My forgiveness? Why me? I'm not the weak little girl that you hit with a broom. The man looked at Natsumi, who had stood up a while ago and was watching this whole scenario in awe. He looked reluctant but still bowed, his teeth clenched as he said, I'm sorry. Natsumi's eyes widened in surprise. Hinata-sama, this is enough, Niji spoke uneasily. He has clearly learned his lesson. Hinata turned around and locked eyes with him, pale eyes staring unflinchingly into pale whites. Niji did not look away as he met her stubborn gaze. After what felt like an eternity, Hinata looked away finally, but reluctantly, as she conceded to her older brother. What a mess, she clicked her tongue. Fine. She turned on her heels and made her way to the door, Niji walking right behind her. Natsumi finally broke out of her trance, and something clicked in her mind. She stomped to the duo, with steel that she didn't know she had, locking eyes with the strange girl. The shopkeeper and Niji gawked as she unexpectedly grabbed a fistful of Hinata's kimono right from her collar and got into her face. You jerk! I'm not a weak little girl. She headbutted her, and Hinata's head snapped back. Niji watched, horrified, too shocked to stop what was happening, his jaw hanging low. The shopkeeper jumped behind the counter, making himself as small as possible. Hinata slowly brought her head back to its place. She apathetically touched her forehead, feeling a little wet spot. Natsumi was too angered to notice what she just did on impulse. Hinata rubbed her bloody finger, and a wicked smirk slowly formed on her face. So, you have a little spine after all. I think her smirk changed into a slight grin. I think I now know why Naruto-sama bothers with you at all. Natsumi faltered, letting go of her collar, and went horrified on noticing the blood on the girl's forehead. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! The man cried pathetically in the background. You've doomed us all! You brat! I didn't mean to. Hinata-sama, are you? She stopped him with a hand. I'm fine, dear brother. Our daily spars hurt more than this superficial wound. She turned towards a pale Natsumi, a serene smile on her face now. It looked pretty disturbing with her still bleeding forehead. I think we will get along well, Natsumi-chan. The complete turnaround in her entire demeanor surprised her, but she noticed one small detail. She squinted her eyes suspiciously. Wait, how do you know my name? We've never met before. I don't even know you. Hinata and Niji stiffened slightly, almost unnoticeably. Natsumi narrowed her eyes further, looking intensely at the Hyuga heiress who was now avoiding her gaze. You've been stalking me, haven't? It was simply a careful observation, not stalking, the girl said heatedly, slightly embarrassed now. I am Hyuga Hinata, the heiress of the Hyuga clan. And this, she pointed to the boy, making him nod, is my brother, Hyuga Niji. I merely wanted to see why Naruto-sama bothered with a commoner. Naruto-sama? Of course, she said it like it was something beyond obvious, lifting up her nose. A strong and kind person like him deserves all the respect. Well, Naru Hinata twitched. Is kind, and he's always training, so I think he is strong as well. Do you see now? Her tone was serious, if a tad bit excited. I think. Natsumi cupped her chin as she spoke. She nodded sagely. I do. But I like nicknames, so. Hinata pursed her lips and sighed. Fine. Let's go now. The man passed out a while ago. She looked at her brother. Niji Nizan? Niji made his way to the man, lifting him up with some struggle and making him sit on the chair, if in a little compromising position. Wait, I'm gonna go with you. But I still haven't bought my vegetables. It's not like I don't wanna, but you know, breathe. Hinata placed her hands on the rambling girl's shoulders. Breathe, Natsumi. She took a deep breath and nodded, making Hinata smile. Let's go get your vegetables first then. 3 figures made their way, walking with their boots leaving deep imprints in the dirty white snow. The cold wind howled, hitting their faces, ruffling their cloaks. The sun was nowhere in sight, and it was getting tougher to keep walking against the slope. We should take a break. Wait until the strong winds pass. No, I can still go on. We're almost halfway there. Tenzo, a male voice said exasperatingly, you've been crawling for the last 15 minutes. We need to stop. Tenzo was so tired he didn't even correct his name. Izumi stopped suddenly, just by a tall tree. We'll camp here for an hour. Naruto? She gave him a look. Yeah, I know. He blurred through hand signs with a surprising speed, slamming his hands down on the snow. Style, multiple mud walls. 4 walls rose up to 15 feet from the ground, entrapping and shielding them from the snowy winds. Naruto looked pointedly at Tenzo, who was now collapsed against the tree, panting. He nodded and brought his hands together, forming small sticks of wood from his arms. The snowstorm should give us enough cover. Izumi, light up the wood. I thought I was supposed to be the leader? You're in no shape to lead, great leader. Tenzo grumbled something but did not speak again. Izumi arranged the wood and lit it up with a small fire jutsu. The 3 of them leaned against the tree, enjoying the warmth of the fire. They stayed in comfortable silence, listening to the crackling of the campfire. It was a pleasant break from the fast-paced days of the exam. Do you ever think about your dreams? Izumi spoke softly, still looking at the fire. Naruto looked at her, surprised. Your reason for living, your ultimate goal. Something that, once accomplished, you could die without any regrets. There was a silence. Do you have anything like that, Naruto? Naruto didn't say anything for a while. He just kept his gaze on the campfire, and Izumi thought he had ignored her. He finally looked up. Do you? She blinked when she realized that he asked her the same question. It was almost as if he was avoiding answering her question. I wish to change the system of shinobi. To free ourselves from the curse that is war. I doubt I will succeed. She looked away, her teeth clenched. But I don't want my brother to grow up in a war-torn world, sent out at an early age to fight like us for his life, used as a pawn in the games of the leaders. They were drowned in silence once again, only the fires crackling and Tenzo's snoring making some noise. Naruto looked at his first friend, the one he would do anything for. He has never seen her look so hopeless before. It brought a painful feeling to his chest. He stood up suddenly, alarming Izumi and making Tenzo fall, who was leaning on his shoulder, as he snoozed. You won't fail, he spoke calmly, with absolute confidence. He turned to face her with a gentle smile. Because you won't be alone. Even if, somehow, the world turns against you, I'll always be your friend. Her eyes widened, and she looked away to hide the surprised look on her face, though it wasn't possible to mask the tint of pink moving over the bridge of her nose. There was a sound of muffled snickering, which turned to full-blown laughter as Tenzo physically struggled to stay quiet. It was just too much for him. However, he sensed an aura of doom and had to stop. Almost mechanically, he looked back and paled. Now, he was proud to admit that there weren't many things that scared him. He trained with a scary man himself, after all. So he liked to believe that he was somewhat desensitized to fear. But this, blood-red eyes glared at him with intent to kill. 3 tomos spinning sinisterly. Die, he would vehemently deny when accused of shrieking in the future, whenever this moment would be brought up. 3 figures watched the walls of stone from a distance. The storm had passed a few minutes ago. Are they stupid? This will only make them stand out. Are we even tailing the correct targets? Yujito looked annoyingly at her 2 younger teammates. She had been tasked with carrying them to the next round, and they couldn't be more frustrating. Quiet down! She snapped at them, making them comply immediately. They are my targets, and this is my mission. You 2 only have to guard our flag, nothing more. She looked over to the walls. Yujito had been tailing them with her team, in the snowstorm ever since she found them. At first, she was reluctant to do it but then hardened herself. The Konoha Genin would have been dead by now if not for this storm, making her delay her plans. It is fortunate that we found them here. Should be easy to destroy the walls and let them suffocate within the snow. She spoke emotionlessly. Her 2 teammates, a black-haired boy, and a brown-haired girl, both in their early teens, turned a little green at the mention. Fine, we'll wait for you. Yujito nodded, and she started running, circling the walls until she was at the opposite end of her team. She firmly set her feet apart in the snowy ground, her gaze cold, and started running through hand seals. Fire style, mouse hairball. She spat something from her mouth, which transformed into blue flaming balls of hair that looked like mice. They continued to split before making their way to the walls, slamming against them with a large explosion, forming a violent cloud of snow. She shielded her face from the impact with her arm as her blonde hair billowed behind her. Good, that should take care of them. She allowed a sad frown on her face as she clapped her hands to pray for the recently dead. She was truly sad for them and wished them a peaceful afterlife, away from the miserable world of the shinobi, a world where you had to follow your orders down to the T, even if you absolutely despised said orders, a world she wished to reject with every day she woke up. However, something in the cloud of snow got her attention as she made her way to the site. There were no bodies or blood now that she looked at it. Well, and there was a big hole in the snow. Shit! The 3 little shits played her for a fool. Somehow, they knew that they were being followed. This wasn't good. Where could they go now? A scream of terror alerted her to their position. It was the familiar voice of her teammates. She cursed again and ran as fast as she could. Her mood soured when she realized the only way she was ever going to catch up to them was by using that. The 3 of them made their way against the snow. Their speed doubled after the much-needed break. It was fortunate that the only team we ran into had the flag we needed, Tenzo said. Yeah, I may not like Danzo, but his training certainly paid off. He had to give it to the crippled man. Danzo knew what he was doing when he said that he was going to teach him. His sensory skills were enormously better than when he first began training. He could make out that they were being followed sometime before they stopped to rest. The only reason they stopped at all was because of the snowstorm. He was pretty sure that the chances of them getting attacked were minuscule in that weather. It was clever of you to use the mole technique to escape, Izumi complimented. She was undoubtedly surprised by all the new jutsu that he managed to learn in the past few months. Yeah. Shursui-senpai knows a lot of jutsu, even if he cannot use a large number of them. He taught me some of them, however, cannot was the wrong term here. Shursui simply didn't attempt them because of their high cost on his chakra levels, as he was not well versed in earth and water styles. Naruto sighed in annoyance. We're being followed, again. Should we stay and fight? Or flee? How many of them? Naruto knelt down on the ground, pressing his index finger against the snowy ground as he closed his eyes to concentrate. Just one. It should be better to fight then, Tenzo supplied helpfully. It is either some idiot who thinks that we're easy meat or someone powerful enough to fight us all at once, Izumi concluded grimly. They stopped walking just in time to notice something truly bizarre. Is that steam? Something is heating the snow too fast for it to stay in its liquid form. He narrowed his eyes, making out a quickly moving figure in front of them. Or rather someone. Tenzo's eyes widened as he shouted, "Duck!" The three of them dropped down just in time to avoid a red blur that moved with unreal speed, which would have hacked their heads off if they were even a second slower. Naruto got up as he felt his heart beat faster, and saw a sight that made him feel uneasy. What is that? His shock was mirrored by Izumi and Tenzo, albeit for different reasons. Tenzo tensed his whole body in trepidation and felt his mouth get dry. He spoke grimly, "A Jinchuriki, a human sacrifice." The ominous words hung in the tense air as the red figure eyed them intensely. Three kids sat on a bench in the park, away from the other children. The afternoon sun bathed the tree leaves in its warm light. They could hear the other kids shout as they played ninja amongst themselves, a brash-sounding boy with markings down his cheeks being the loudest. "You shouldn't have been so rude to the man," she let out hesitantly before quickly adding, "Not to say I'm not grateful or anything, you know." Hinata giggled gently. It still surprised her when she compared this girl to the one who bullied that shopkeeper. It was almost as if she had a switch that flipped her personality every time it was triggered. Natsumi licked her popsicle, her bag of groceries lying forgotten beside her on the bench. "It is all right. I do not mind at all." She shook her head. "My father says that I have a short temper, and I cannot help it when something angers me." Her Byakugan activated unconsciously, making Natsumi shift uneasily in her spot. "But enough about that. Tell me more about Naruto-sama." There it was again. Her kind and gentle persona, albeit a bit more excited now that she was talking about the object of her interests. Natsumi was getting annoyed by this girl's weird fixation on her friend. "I do know a lot. I've only been friends with him for a few months. And then too, he was mostly out training, so I don't know much." She shook her head helplessly. "Such a shame," Hinata let out, clicking her tongue. "I thought that maybe you would know something. But I was disappointed." She shook her head in mock sadness. Niji, who was silently eating his own popsicle, shifted uncomfortably. He knew his cousin could be very manipulative, even guilt-tripping the clan head on some occasions. He didn't know if it was something he should be proud of or worried about. Natsumi scrunched her nose, squinting her eyes and tilting her head as she thought hard. Hinata tried to be discreet while looking at her from her peripheral vision. Suddenly, she snapped her fingers, almost alarming Niji so much that he dropped his popsicle. He cast a disapproving frown at her, which the now excited girl ignored. "I know." She jumped from her place onto the ground. "He likes ramen. That was how I met him. He likes ramen." Hinata mulled over it for a while before an excited smile formed on her face. "Excellent." She took Natsumi's hands in hers, ignoring her personal space completely, and shook them. "This has been a very informative day for me." "You have my thanks." She laughed nervously, feeling somewhat embarrassed now. "It's nothing. You were the one who helped me earlier. You're kinda cool for a bully." Hinata's smile became slightly forced, and her eyebrow twitched. "She has no idea she just insulted me, does she?" The three of them stopped, hearing the sound of footsteps as someone came into their field of view. An older man, in his middle age, with eyes similar to the two children and long dark hair reaching to his waist. "Hinata-sama, Niji-sama, Hayashi-sama wishes your presence in the manor," the man spoke respectfully. Niji abruptly threw his popsicle behind him. It would tarnish his budding reputation as the perfect Hyuga. He has never seen Hayashi-sama or his father eating a popsicle. The man swept his gaze across the third member, and his eyes darkened slightly, his jaw tense. Is there a problem, my dear Ko?" There was a subtle threat in her tone that was not lost on the now named Ko. Her Byakugan certainly didn't look very gentle, and no. "Great," she chirped. "Let us not make father wait any longer. I will see you later, new friend." She emphasized the last word, still staring at Ko. It was a statement that she would be taking offense on her behalf. It also served as a warning. Natsumi watched the trio leave, blinking owlishly. Reality finally set in. She made another friend. Her mood escalated as a joyous smile appeared on her face. She blatantly ignored that her new friend was something of a bully. At least, she was nice to her. And the only time she bullied someone was when they did something terrible, so she couldn't be too bad. Right. She made her way back to her apartment as the sun set in a brilliant glow of red and orange, illuminating the tree leaves with its retreating light. She had a big smile on her face and a light skip in her step as she walked, swaying her bag of groceries and ignoring the stares yet again, but it didn't discourage her anymore. She made a new friend. The three of them eyed the red figure warily, looking for any sudden movements. Naruto felt a primal fear in its presence, but he shoved the feeling down. Getting scared won't help them survive. A Jinchuriki? Tenzo looked from the corner of his eye and silently debated on whether to tell him or not. If they had to survive, then lack of information certainly wouldn't help, he concluded. It is what the name says. A human sacrifice, he explained grimly. A child who was sacrificed at its birth to contain a tailed beast within itself. They are the greatest weapons of a hidden village, but are usually despised by the people for what they contain. Naruto felt a sick feeling in his stomach as he kept listening. His mind was piecing together a twisted picture, but he kept denying it. Then his lips were dry all of a sudden. Then the QB. Tenzo gave a solemn nod. The only reason why he knew about this was because he was basically raised within the root. No other genin should have this kind of knowledge. Naruto felt an intense urge to punch the yondaime, somehow. Kumo has 2 of the 9-tailed beasts in its possession. The Hachibi is contained within the Crazy Proctor. So this is most probably the Nibi container. They could hear the hissing sound of snow being vaporized as the malevolent chakra of the figure clashed against it. It was yet to move, silently watching the 3 of them with a predatory gaze. Izumi recollected herself. She had heard the term in passing in her clan grounds but didn't put much thought into it. How do we defeat it? It won't be easy, Tenzo murmured as he studied the figure, but I have a plan. 2 sets of ears listened attentively as he spoke.